So, good morning, hello, and welcome. On behalf of CCAV, Innovate UK, Zenzic, and myself, Anthony Gallego from KTN. Can you all hear me? Is it good? Good. Excellent. So yes, welcome to what has been a long time coming, a cohort networking event. I think it's been some time since we had one for the CAM network. And we're aligning this with the Commercialising for Connected and Automated Mobility supply chain competition. So CCAV are going to give us some updates and give us an opportunity to sort of discuss a network across this, around that competition. But before that, there's no fire alarms planned for today, so if you hear that, exit down the fire exit, and the rendezvous point is towards that way. There's a walled area. Just follow me, because I'll be trying to keep up with me. Yes. Toilets, I think you've probably identified they're over outside on the hallway. I will ask, and I want your opinion on this. We've been promoting Meeting Mojo as a closed network collaboration tool that we can use, where if you register, we can keep a link of who's interested in the supply chain. We can see who's there, and actually allows you guys to connect directly with the people in this room. So you don't need us to make those introductions. You know who's there, who's interested in taking part in the consortia and competitions. I would recommend that you register, try it, but please give me your honest feedback. You know, if it's not a tool that works, let me know. If it's not, we'll find other ways that help you guys do that connection, that communication. So, Innovate UK, we are a group of companies, organizations, hoping, driving innovation and promoting and empowering you guys to develop those ideas. Within the Innovate UK, we have KTN, where I work, the Knowledge Transfer Network, and Innovate UK Edge. Now, later on today, you'll hear about Innovate UK Edge, and I think it's worth you guys listening to what they have to offer, because it's very relevant to the supply chain, developing those capabilities and helping you scale up. But from my side, we are a mission-driven organization, so our job is just to make you succeed. We do that by connecting innovators and enhancing those ideas and bringing people together to exploit and accelerate those ideas. We're not here to make money out of you. We're, as I said, we're mission-driven, and that mission-driven approach has set us in a very good stance, where we've built a big, massive network of companies in the UK. I think just in the transport sector, I think we have something like 12,000 organizations in our network. And, you know, this is all data, but what KTN manages to achieve is that it increases the collaboration between organizations, which leads to faster outcomes for you guys, help achieve investments, and supporting, you know, additional investment into R&D in the UK. Lots of ways we can help. These is ways for you guys to come and talk to me, and I will find a way of helping you guys. Okay. But today, as I said, it's about networking, cohort forming, and speaking amongst ourselves. But in terms of an agenda, CCAV is going to give us a bit of an intro as to what's been happening recently. We'll open the panel for a bit of Q&A around the recent competition. The supply chain competition is an opportunity for you guys to ask questions to CCAV and Innovate. And we'll break up. So lots of opportunities for all of us to meet each other. And if you see unfamiliar faces in the room, just go and say hello. Try and understand what capabilities and competence around the room. Zenzic will give us an update on their support and the recent support report that they've issued on the supply chain. We'll break out for lunch, Harry Potter style. You'll see. CAFPAS, so CCAV will give us an update on CAFPAS report, and we'll have an opportunity again for a pitch event. We'll spend an hour meeting about 25 companies who have come forward and offered a 2-minute pitch. There'll be opportunities for anybody who wants to ad-lib at the end as well to come up and say hello. Again, an opportunity to showcase who's in the room, what capabilities are here. and go and immediately after meet up with them. But yeah, Innovate UK Edge, I think it's really key that you listen to what Innovate UK have to offer. It's a great opportunity and a great set of support that they bring together. We'll close with some Q&As. If anybody's got any last burning questions, we'll hand it over. And that's it, really. Over to you, and enjoy.
Cool. Thank you very much. Let me just beckon some people in from outside. That doesn't open. Right.
Where's the button? Oh, by the way, there's access buttons. If you touch those.
Security button. Cool. Good morning, all. Some of you know me, some of you don't. My name's David Webb. I'm Head of Innovation for the Centre for Connected and Autonomous Vehicles. We are the joint BAYS and DFT expert unit supporting safe and secure connected and automated mobility here in the UK. We used to run these events every 6 months, way back before coronavirus. We did try to run them virtually. They didn't work so well. So welcome back to the first one in more than a couple of years, and it's great to have you all here. This morning, I'm going to run, or we, Catherine and myself, are going to run you through a little bit of an overview of CCAV, some of the wider things that we do. I'm going to then talk a little bit about our innovation funding, the R&D co-funding that we do, and we're going to talk about the 2 competitions that are going on at the moment. Richard's going to join me as we talk about supply chain, which is the competition that's open at the moment, and you'll be able to ask some questions then, and then we'll break for that break, and then we'll talk with Zenzic about the work they do and how they support you and their supply chain. So first of all, I'm going to let Catherine come up and talk a little bit about wider CCAV.
Thank you. Right. Oh, okay. Morning, everyone. Some of you know me, others of you don't. My name's Catherine Lovell. I'm one of the deputy heads in CCAV, and I'm just going to talk to you a bit about sort of the broader work that CCAV has been doing. Starting off with this paper that some of you may have seen already, the CAM 2025 paper, which we published in August of this year and sets out the government's vision for connected and automated mobility, but also, crucially, the plan of how we intend to get there. And that's a collaborative thing. It's not just a government effort. It's working with industry. It's working with academia. It's involving the public to understand what they want and need. It's working across government. So there's all sorts of different parties involved in that. And there are kind of 3 key pillars of activity that are set out in that document. One around ensuring safety and security, one around ensuring the economic and industrial benefits are gained, and one around the wider societal benefits. And there's sort of big wins to be had in all of those areas, so they're all kind of equally important to us. So, yeah, these are the kind of 3 areas that we're talking about. So in the safety and security, we have sort of 2 main kind of areas of work that we're doing. One is our CAV Pass program, which, as was mentioned, is something that I'm going to talk about a bit more later on today. And that's our kind of program for working out how government can ensure the safety and cybersecurity of connected and automated mobility as it comes forward. It's sort of thinking very much about the government processes, and I'll explain a bit what sort of in and out of scope of that later on. The other area is the regulation and legislation. So this is, it sets out in the document about our planned regulatory framework and the kind of safety framework, and I'll talk a little bit more about that in a moment. There's then the industrial and economic benefits. The Commercialising CAM programme, which David's going to talk about more, is very much part of that, but it builds on work we've done over, 7 or 8 years now in this area. And then finally, they're kind of making CAM work for society. It's about, improving transport provision across the country, integrating with current transport systems that are out there, getting the wider benefits such as decarbonisation benefits and increased access to transport for more of the UK population. So all of those kind of elements come into that final area. So, if I can move on, there we go. Starting with the sort of regulatory side, we asked the law commissions of England and Wales and the Scottish Law Commission to do a big piece of work for us about 4 years ago now, looking at how the regulatory system might need to be adapted to work for self-driving vehicles. They came up with 75 recommendations in January. Some of you may have seen those and be familiar with them, others of you may be less so. But one of the key principles that they sort of set out in their recommendations was the need for this self-driving threshold, a real distinction between driver assistance and self-driving. So, you know, we've got definitions up here. The driving assistance could be a lot of automation. There could be quite a lot that the vehicle is doing for you, but the driver remains the one responsible. So they have to keep monitoring the road environment. They have to be there and ready at any time. Self-driving is when the driver is no longer responsible, so that passes over to someone else. And under our proposals, at that point, the driver is then free to do other things, or there could be no driver in the vehicle at all. So this is a legal distinction, essentially. It's about transfer of responsibility and making sure that's clear and fair. And it's really important that you have that clarity so that the users of those vehicles and other road users and everyone involved, insurance, the general public, understand what the responsibilities are and who they belong to. And to sort of support that, we also have kind of a recommendation that we're putting forward for a misleading marketing offence as part of our regulatory proposals, so that things that don't pass that self-driving threshold, and I'll talk a bit more about how that will be assessed, they then couldn't sell themselves as being a self-driving vehicle, because we see that kind of lack of understanding in the general population is a really sort of critical thing. So if the human's not making the decisions and isn't responsible, kind of who is? And this is where our new proposed safety framework comes in. It's bounded by a safety ambition, which is the kind of overall safety goal. And we consulted on our proposed ambition as part of the CAM25 paper. That consultation set out a proposal that the self-driving vehicles should be as safe as equivalent in safety as a competent and careful driver. That was an open consultation. We've had responses back and we're still analysing those at the moment. But that bar is actually quite high, and we have to balance the kind of ability of industry to meet that bar with public perceptions and the need to sort of maintain and improve road safety on UK roads. So it is a balancing act, and we will be looking at all of the responses that we got into that consultation. If you were one of them, thank you very much. And we'll be sort of setting out that overall government ambition. That will then be developed further in what we call our national safety principles, which will flesh out that ambition and sort of really explain how it will be, what it means in practice, I guess. And that is something that we'll consult further on in due course, because we aim for that to be statutory guidance, those national safety principles. So we'll be held to those, and they will inform all of the rest of this safety framework. So just talking through that framework a bit, you've got the explanation of sort of each of the different bits here. The approval is how the initial automated driving system will be assessed against safety requirements. They may be international standards, they may be UK standards, depending on what's available and what we think is appropriate in the UK. We're not trying to reinvent the wheel, so where there are appropriate standards internationally, and we know industry want to sell internationally, we're going to try and support that by being consistent. But there may be some cases where there aren't international standards available yet. So in that instance, we're looking at developing our own. That will feed into authorization, and authorization is the point at which we decide whether you cross that threshold. So is the vehicle able to safely and legally drive itself? And that also involves identifying the organisation that will be responsible for the vehicle when driving itself. And I'll come on to the new legal entities that we're proposing in a moment. Then, when there's no driver at all in the vehicle, there are some of the other duties. Because if there is a driver in the vehicle still and it's only self-driving for part of the journey, then things like ensuring your kids are strapped in the back seat, ensuring your loading is properly done, ensuring you've got insurance and roadworthy vehicle will be still rest with the driver. However, in the vehicles where there is no driver any longer, you need someone else to be taking on those responsibilities. And that's where what we call, we've got NUICs and UX. So user in charge is what we call the driver who's in a vehicle but not driving, because the vehicle is taken over on in terms of driving itself. And then if there's no user in charge, we get a NUIC. And building on that, we get a NUIC operator, who is the one that takes on those wider responsibilities. There'll then be a set of in-use regulation. So this will involve sort of monitoring the behaviour of the vehicle, taking regulatory sanctions where necessary, and kind of just making sure that things are still operating in the way that they were designed to and that we've authorised them to do. So that's sort of where that side comes in. And then finally, there's the instant investigation element. You may be aware that the government's committed to setting up a new road safety investigation branch, and this is where this sort of element will sit. And they will look at trends in kind of incidents that happen, but they might also, because self-driving is a new technology, they might also look at individual incidents with self-driving vehicles, just to make sure that there's no particular problem being identified. And all of this will sort of be a circular loop. We know this is a developing technology still. We know that there's going to be learnings along the way. So we intend it to be an iterative process so that findings can be fed back into that approval and authorization and it kind of carry on improving over time. So I said I'd talk a bit more about the legal entities. If it's not the driver who's responsible, who is? So the first thing is the authorized self-driving entity, and they're the ones responsible for the behavior of the vehicle when driving itself. And that will be assessed at the authorization stage. And that will include things like, financial standing to make sure that they can continue to support that vehicle across its lifetime, being of good repute for similar reasons. But it will also be the kind of bringing forward the evidence that the vehicle is able to drive itself, and being the ones who are then responsible for it when it is self-driving. I've already talked a little bit about the user in charge and the no user in charge operators, so I won't go too much into that. But they, particularly in the newer code, might also have further requirements if it's a vehicle that then is going to be carrying passengers, in the way that there's further passenger licensing for conventional vehicles now. So the other area in the safety and security kind of box is our CAV Pass programme. So we have got a whole session on this later, so I'm not going to talk too much about it. But suffice to say, these work streams have all been designed to support that safety framework, the circular diagram that I was just showing you a moment ago. So there's a mix of developing new technical standards where there aren't any internationally, so that we have something that we can check against for the approval kind of stage, thinking about how the authorization procedure will work, getting into the detail of that, looking at the safe use. So this is partly the in-use regulation side, but it's also partly that broader, how will the vehicle be used, how is it going to interact with other vehicles, do people using them understand how to use them properly, all of those sorts of elements. Workstream 4 is very much for us as government. This is about the things we need as government to make sure all of the rest of it happens. So whether that's skills, whether that's access to certain facilities, testing facilities or the like, all of that comes in that Workstream 4. Workstream 5 is one where we set up a unit deliberately to sort of help in the interim period. So that safety framework is the proposal, and government is behind that proposal and have committed to regulating in this area. But we all know there's been a lot of ministerial changes over recent months, and that has kind of jumbled up the parliamentary timetable somewhat. So actually, at the moment, there's still some uncertainty as to exactly when we're going to get that regulation out there. So in the meantime, we are working sort of on interim requirements and the interim kind of case, thinking about things like how novel vehicles might need exemptions, and this team in Workstream 5 very much will help people sort of through those paths. So if you are wanting to bring a self-driving vehicle to the roads, I strongly suggest you get in touch with them. But we've also been doing things like thinking about driver and user education through our AV Drive group, which is a cross kind of government, industry, insurance, all sorts group, and things like talking to police about enforcement and sort of all of these different aspects. And then finally, Workstream 6 is on cybersecurity and data. Originally, this was sort of fed into the other work streams, but actually we decided to pull it out because it is quite different from some of the others. So that is now a separate work stream of its own. Pleased to say we'll be getting a new lead on this very shortly, so that's great. And I think at that point, I'm going to hand back to David.
Thank you very much, Catherine. Do the people stood at the back want to grab a seat, or are you comfortable standing at the back? There are some seats dotted around. So the next few slides, I'm just going to give a bit of an overview of where we've been and where we're going. I have a caveat coming up, so we'll check in on that. But what about innovation? Where have we been? So since 2015, and actually we started just before 2015 with... Yes, the slides will be available. But if you want a photo of me, that's fine. So we started actually just before 2014, but CCAV itself was founded in 2015, and we've co-invested around 440 million between us and industry. More than 90 projects across the whole of the CAM supply chain ecosystem sector. Pick your favourite words. There's people in the front row who argue with me about which is the right word. But that was really there to seed the environment and really just encourage the technologies development here in the UK. It also helped us found CAM Testbed UK, and I can see some CAM Testbed UK folk in the room today. 6 facilities where you can go and safely and securely test your CAM services, your CAM technologies, and really push that forward. We've also done additional research in the last couple of years around removing the safety driver. So how do you actually remove that safety driver? What other capabilities, what other technologies would you need to monitor the vehicle and oversee the vehicle if you remove the safety driver from it? We're doing some work with the NPL and Met Office at the moment around sensor performance and assurance. That work is ongoing, now funded by CAVPAS. Thank you very much, CAVPAS. And really does look at what is the impact of weather like today on your sensors and their performance, and how you can validate that and trust those sensors. And then we've also done some work around minimal risk maneuvers and conditions. I will say they wouldn't fit on the slide, but really I can't spell maneuver. That ability for the vehicle to know something's going wrong, I can't continue my normal driving task, I'm going to pull over to the side of the road, stop somewhere safe, is really important. And it does tie into some of the definitions that Catherine talked about earlier, where there's not a human in that loop to correct something. So the vehicle's got to be able to handle everything on its own. So that's where we've started. This is currently where we are. So we unless somebody corrects me wrong, Richard or Robert, we've got 3 projects left from that original funding stream. I know some of them have just finished, looking at Rav in the corner, but MultiCav, CAV4 and Serve City are the last few that we've got running. And MultiCav, not too far away from here in Didcot, will be running a electric autonomous minibus and an electric autonomous bus from Didcot Parkway to Milton Park. And anybody who works at Milton Park will be able to use that service. That's going to be running soon, I hope, looking at some of the people involved, and will end at the end of this financial year. Serve City on the right-hand side, and some of those folks are in the room as well. Kind of was a phoenix from the flames. This project originally had JLR and Addison Lee involved, and they were going to be doing like posh taxi services to City Airport for all those businessmen. Unfortunately, Jaguar Land Rover and Addison Lee both had to pull out of that project. Luckily, Nissan stepped in and helped us out on this one, and they've been really exploring how their driving system that they developed under Human Drive has been working in the urban environment. They work with Hitachi on that as well, and Hitachi's brought in some of the other SMEs, and really good look at how you drive in the urban complex environment, but working with Smart Mobility Living Lab, one of our CAM test beds, of what does roadside infrastructure look like? What does that communication to the vehicle do, and how does it assist you? So again, pushing where we are with Serve City. And then in the middle, CAV4, which I'm really hoping starts running soon. We've got 5 12-metre long diesel autonomous buses running a 14-mile bus service from a park and ride north of the Forth Bridge, over the Forth Road Bridge, and into the tram hub just outside Edinburgh. That service is going to be registered as a bus service, so it is a UK first. It will be running for 6 months from the end of January until the end of July, and hopefully we'll see 10,000 or so passengers per week on that service. I've been on the bus, it works. So everybody, some point, maybe the next one of these will be in Edinburgh and we'll all get a ride. Jim's at the back, so if you've got any questions, he's there. On this one, the Commercialising CAM Deployments competition. So this was launched last summer, closed in autumn, and we were very, 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 very much hoping to be able to have told you who those winners are at the moment. Unfortunately, as Catherine mentioned, a new king, new prime minister, new prime minister, new minister, new minister, new minister, new minister, means we're still waiting. I'm happy to say it's currently with the Bay Secretary of State, Grant Shapps, to be signed off this week. So we will hopefully be able to tell you in the coming weeks before the end of the month. £92 million worth of bids came into us, and we've only got £40 million of money. So it was a very good selection. It's the widest regional coverage we've ever had. We've got some bids building on previous projects, and we've got some brand new stuff. So it was really good for us to sit there and see all that come in. We're now edging closer and closer to being able to tell you what that is. So I'm going to make a plea. For those of you that know people of CCAV in the room, don't bug them today about who won and who didn't, because none of them can tell you anything. I'm sorry. I would love to be stood here telling you what those projects are. I couldn't make it work. So, but on interesting news, fun news, good news, we've got the CAM supply chain open. We didn't launch this with our normal fanfare and our normal kick-off event, because it was very much, we either get this out under the minister's radar and it's launched, or we wait a long time for a minister to say yes. So we kind of launched it under the radar. 16 million of collaborative R&D funding. We're looking for projects up to about £2 million. Although, as always, if you've got a better idea than us, drop us an email. Me and Richard will go through it and have a look and decide if you want to break our rules or not, and if we will let you. We're looking for probably about 10 projects, knowing that not everybody bids for the 2 million, and it has a vary. But in my mind, we're probably going to be aiming in that 8 to 10 projects realm. And we've got 5 themes that we're really interested in developing. And the supply chain is about developing R&D towards commercialisation and commercial success. So it's not blue sky, it's mid-TRL. How do you move your technology, your product, or your service into something that you can sell as part of the UK CAM supply chain? The 5 areas we're interested in, and the QR code does go to the competition website. I checked it. The 5 themes are perception and localization. So one of the things I'm really interested in, and one of the things I think is really important to how we know that the vehicles and the services are safe, is how they understand the world around them and how they understand their position in that world. So I'm really interested in funding those technologies that really push that technology forward, developing solutions that enhance the perception and localization capabilities of ADS, supporting safe behaviours, especially around vulnerable road users. So how does your vehicle understand who's around it, the behaviours they're having, and what it should be doing to complete its task as safely as possible? So lots of different things in there fit into that bucket. Safety and or mission critical vehicle systems. So this is your kind of hardware theme. So what are those onboard systems that make sure that the vehicle is safe and can do its job? So that might be some investment in some new sensor technology. That might be about redundancy. That might be loads of things. Basically, hardware fits into that bucket. We've then got a slightly more fuzzy one, advanced software solutions. So this is about how we deliver that ADS. What are the software solutions that support that? And that can be AI, machine learning, and or simulation, or any combination of those. So we'd be interested in seeing development on the simulation side, where we can better understand how you validate and verify that simulation, how that simulation represents the real world. We'd be interested in how you go from a machine-learned black box to say, well, actually, this is how we know it behaves, this is how we can predict its behaviours, and this is how we can assure you, the assurers, that it's going to behave all of the right ways all the time, even when it hasn't seen something before. So we're really interested in how we start pushing that through. Number 4 is verification and validation of CAM. So those tools that we can use to go, yep, that is safe, we're happy to move that forward. And you'll notice on that list, it says to support developers, deployers, and insurers understand evidence and support safety standards. So CAVPASS is doing the bit for government, and almost certainly will look to this thread for good ideas. But CAVPASS is not your customer here. Your customer is your stakeholders, your supply chain. It's just a little bit of a difference there to make sure that we're talking commercialisation here. If your mission is just to sell to government, you might not be commercially successful. So think about how you support others in the supply chain to make sure that they can convince their investors. I missed investors off that list. Investors and insurers that the system is safe and verifiably safe. You've got that evidence. And then last but not least is infrastructure. Now, I always caveat this one. This is not investment in infrastructure. I'm not going to pay you £2 million to go install a load of new fancy streetlights. I am going to pay you £2 million to invest in the R&D of that infrastructure. What changes do we need in the physical infrastructure to enhance the safety offering we've got? Digital infrastructure, be that comms, be that data, where do we need that information? How do we do that? And how do we exploit that information? So those 5 themes are the general area we are at. And there's lots of overlap, there's lots of linkages between them. So we're happy to take those bids that go, actually, we've got a bit of this, a bit of this, but our solution is here. And we're happy to look at that. Now, I've got a couple of more slides about adjacent work, but I wonder if I pause there and ask Richard to come up. And if you've got questions, we can take 5 to 10 minutes worth of questions. I can then talk about the final thing, and then we can have a bit of a networking break from there. I'm going to pick on somebody if nobody's got questions. No, nobody?
So I think it's probably worth just saying that normally we'd have a Q&A session at the end of the briefing, but because we wanted to get the briefing out and the competition out, we did a briefing video, which hopefully you've all seen. And if you haven't, scan that. You can watch the video. So I'm expecting there will be some questions from... And Tony's got a microphone.
Tony's got a mic to...
So if you have any questions about things that might be in scope or about the process, please feel free.
Okay.
Or if you don't want to do it now, if you want to do it in private, that's fine.
Yeah.
It's not a problem.
No issues. Cool. So, go. The ball is rolling. There'll be an avalanche now.
Staying involved with Eloy.
Hi.
In the scope, it says something about specific for automated mobility.
Yes.
A lot of our also in the sort of connected side make it available for human-driven vehicles as well as automated vehicles in the future.
Yes.
So the word I'm worrying about is that specific. Does it have to be specific, or can it be sort of inclusive and straddle both sides?
It's a very good question, and it's one that I don't quite have the answer to. So CCAV as a whole, connected and automated vehicles, but predominantly we work towards automated. So but equally, connectivity is here and now and can benefit people here and now. So I think for me, and I'll let Richard answer as well, if your bid says this is the solution, it helps automation in this way, but actually we can also apply it now, that actually just adds to your commercialisation and your viability as a product. So I wouldn't have a problem for it, but I would want to see a hook to automation.
Yeah, and in the same way that, I mean, there's obviously, the first one's about perception and localization. Sensing systems, classically, if you develop a sensing system which is suitable for automation, it's probably going to be pretty good at doing ADAS as well, in which case, you know, that would definitely be within scope. So as long as it's not purely ADAS, and there is a clear and obvious link to supporting autonomy, then you're good to go.
Yeah, it's Bob Banks from Vodafone. I'd like to challenge you, David, on your statement a few seconds ago that connectivity is already here. As far as I'm aware, there's no ITS connectivity as defined by the ETSI standard out on the UK roads at this point in time. So apart from perhaps some test and trial. So I think you're missing a very important point if you think connectivity is already here. And I think if you're not careful, you'll overlook ITS connectivity and your automated vehicles will come along and they won't work as you expect them to because you haven't taken that ITS connectivity step. So I very much encourage you to also include ITS connectivity into this funding opportunity.
So we do take that on board. So we do also work with the two data teams in DFT who lead on the data side for DFT, including ITS connectivity. And it is one of those conversations that we are having at the moment with DFT about what this looks like as we go forward. Because it has always felt to me, if we focus on automation with connectivity, everybody sees that connectivity benefit as far off in the future with just the automation. So how do we work with the here and now to bring connectivity to benefit the human drivers? But equally, that's not really CCAV's role in and of itself. So that's why we're trying to work with the DFT. So yeah, I mean, and as I said at the start, if there's an element there where you're like, well, actually, this connectivity helps us, it helps you do your automation. And as I said, Smart Mobility Living Lab and Serve City are exploring some of that now. We think this is worthy of funding, then please bid it in. But I would see it as I would see it in the infrastructure pitch. I wouldn't have a problem with that.
Coventry City Council. Sunil Padale, Coventry City Council. Just a question on infrastructures. We have got the test beds, they're all set up and everything, but we're not a supply chain. Can we become part of a consortium that is particularly dealing with infrastructure? Because as Bob just mentioned, the infrastructure will need to change to allow for all the connectivity to come through. Mm-hmm. And the main infrastructure changes would be communication. Even though we've got those test beds set up, would that be something that you'd look at?
Again, if it's research and figuring it out, then yes. If it's just, oh, we know we need 72 more street lamps to put the cameras on, no. But if it's, well, how do we do this so we're not having to spend all that money on infrastructure physical, we can use what's there already, we can do mobile stuff, that research is fine and it is in there. And you as Cov City or as part of Midlands Future Mobility, I wouldn't have a problem with you being that consortia partner.
Just the point being, though, that this is a supply chain competition, and the fundamental point is to make things which are commercially viable. Yeah. Therefore, you can't be the lead. You can support, but you can't be a lead, I'm afraid. That has to be a commercial partner who's going to go out and exploit and make money.
You could obviously spin off a company. I'm not sure Cov City would let you do that, but
You do your own if you want.
you could try. Anybody else? One at the back. Peter?
Hi, David. Just a thing about dates, I guess. Given sort of recent movements of dates, the fact that people are bid writing over the Christmas holidays, how confident are you you're going to hit the fact that everyone's going to be assessed, interviewed, decided and grant offered before the projects start in April?
Very good challenge. We've learnt a lot from the deployments competition and the battle rhythm of that. Richard and I and Izzy, the Innovate UK competition manager, have been looking at these dates. If I'm wholly honest, these ones I don't think you're going to start 1st of April. There's what we're going to aim for, but we're not going to lose it if we miss it. When we were setting this competition and we knew when we wanted to launch and we knew when we could launch, the date was kind of, do we be evil and do it short and end it before Christmas, or do we give you an extra week and a half knowing that, and I hope some of you take Christmas leave, but it gives you a little bit of enough time to do that. So yeah, Richard and I will continue to work with Izzy to see what that timeline looks like. Now obviously, depending on how many people we take to interview, that takes a set amount of time. We now, fingers crossed, know our ministers, the ministers are stable. We don't have to wait as long as we did with the deployments competition to get it to the ministers. We can do that a lot quicker. So we will try and compress some of those timelines on our side.
But we can't guarantee them.
Yeah.
We'll do our best. We are reasonably confident that we can get through to interviews on that timescale. But what happens after that is to some extent out of our hands, I'm afraid. So we just got to go with what we can and hope that we've got stable ministers.
Yeah. We can assign you a monitoring officer.
So I think one of the things I would like to see in the bids is that we've asked you for a 2-year project, but almost certainly we're not going to be able to give you 2 years. So what does that look like? Do you say, well, actually, we do need a 2-year, and this is what's going to happen at the end? And it's a strong signal for us and the senior leadership to say, we can't just end March 2025. We need some runtime. How do we do that? Or you can be like, well, we're not going to get 2 years, so here's a 18-month project, and it's different. So I'd like to have that conversation, and I'd like to see that in the bids, because sounds really crazy, but we're already starting to think about SR 2024 and what funding years 25, 26 looks like. So more evidence to say, actually, there's stuff that flows and is continuable is a good thing for us to have. Hello?
Can you hear me?
The mic's on its way.
Richard Curran from TRL and the Living Lab. Thank you very much, and I'm so sorry I'm late.
No problem.
My question's sort of linked on to the connectivity part and to the 5 themes we've got, because it strikes me as somebody who's looking at this competition quite hard. Consortium that I could be involved in could choose to go down on 1 or all 5 of those in a solution. And I'm just intrigued by that in terms of the marking and how that would be looked at. So if I was looking at situational awareness for infrastructure, I've got to do cyber, I've got to do software, hardware, and you get the point.
Yep, I get the point. So there's 2 things here. There's the independent assessors who will be looking at your bids, and they will say in scope or out of scope. So if you hit any of those, you're in scope, so that's fine. They will then predominantly be looking at, is it viable? Is it going to be successful? Is it commercially viable? What does that look like? Does it rise the tide? Does it help us all? We get 40 bids and 40 of them score well. Then I and CCAV have the hard challenge of going, well, we've only got so much money, how do we do that? And that's what we described as the portfolio approach. And the simplest way is we're going to take one of each of those, and there's our 5 projects. The more complex way is, as you've described it, well, you're hitting multiples, and the value of hitting multiples means actually that's really useful to us, so we're going to take that one. So it would come down to the portfolio approach, assuming everybody scored the same.
Should I have to follow up?
No, go for it.
So on that, scoring because it's a commercialisation project. My opinion, it's just a Curtin opinion, is that you can often demonstrate the quickest way to market with a multi-approach, because if it's just a singular,
Yeah.
you then have to wait for other things to happen for that
Yeah.
to have a commercial value. If you could position it, and I'm intrigued by that, if you do that to the portfolio.
Yeah, yeah, and it will be that balance of what do we need to support the ecosystem, and these are the 5 areas that I think are really important to the ecosystem. Without these, we're not going to be doing safe and secure, so how do we bring it? But you're right, the right pitch, and I'm not saying everybody has to now meet all 5 of these, but hitting more than one of them makes sense.
But if you're hitting one of them, and it's an absolutely critical showstopper, and you're solving that one, then obviously that's going to score highly in itself. So it's going to be a balance between depth and breadth.
Yeah.
Richard, can you speak into the mic?
Sorry. Which one? There's 2 mics here. There we go. Anybody else? There we go, in the corner. How long have we got? One more question. 2 more questions.
Hi, good morning. Amin JD from Semantic Chasm. So I've been looking at the bullet points, and I think I can probably offer a suggestion for all 3. So a piece of software that actually does all 3, because I personally worked on something that does explainability first. And without really good perception and localization, you can't get that working really well. And of course, everything else that's machine learning or AI-based would not make sense.
Yeah.
So providing that could be the bid, that could be the thing I kind of go for. At the end of the day, I'll probably always need data. So how does it work with everybody else bidding who's probably already got self-driving cars with sensors, collecting data and so on,
Yep.
and seeing how we can assess that before we can take it even further and know what did we not record, what are the critical situations that we don't do.
Yep. So Zenzic at the front, who you'll meet shortly, and Tony on the left, they are your access to the other consortium partners here to say, well, how do I pitch this to people to get the information I need? What sort of companies am I interested in talking to? And to an extent, I can help as well, but as the competition runs, I kind of have to step away from it to remain impartial. But Zenzic and KTN are there to help you do that networking and find those partners. They might not need to come in as funded partners. They might just be giving you some data for you to prove out your case. But from your description, yeah, there are people in this room that I would hope would talk to you, and definitely Zenzic and KTN will support. Cool. One last question from Bob.
It's something that you said, though. So can you clarify, if I have a 2-year project but I don't start till the 1st of July, is there the opportunity to extend past March 2020?
So that's the challenge that I'm going to have to take, because our money ends March 2025. So I can't do anything about that until SR 2024. And if you remember SR 21, they announced it to the public in October, and I got told how much money I had in May. So if you're expecting October 24 to suddenly know what we can do in March, April 25, it's going to be really hard. But that's not saying, and Richard, correct me if I'm wrong here, that's not saying that you say, well, actually, we do need 2 years, but May and June aren't going to be funded by CCAV, they're going to be funded by ourselves to finish this project and do this. But we want that extension with the support from CCAV and Innovate UK. That's viable.
There are things that we can do to try and ease if you do need to go over that boundary. It's not nice, it's not easy. There are some things that we can do in terms of changing intervention rates where it's appropriate to do that.
Yeah, but I would be looking at that March 25 as you know your money's going to stop.
Yes.
Because unless SR24 is really fast, I'm not going to have anything. Jonathan, last one.
Does it make sense, actually, and having put in many bits in the past, putting in that ideally you want a 24-month program, an 18-month funded program will do this, 24 will do that, because as you know, a lot is around sustainability, So actually signposting in your original submission, which then could lead on to highlighting additional funding should SR come along.
Yeah.
It makes it a little bit easier.
I don't think that will necessarily help in terms of the bid, because the assessors have to score
Of course.
on what they can see and within the rules. They can't stretch the boundaries. It's useful for us to know, so that we can start that political decision or political discussion, which may or may not allow those to stretch when we get to that point. But there's not a lot of point in putting that in the bid, because the assessor just will say, no, it's got to finish on the
But you are going to be looking for sort of sustainability in the bid, aren't you?
Yes.
So therefore, that's part of the critical submission.
So your March 2025, the project funding finishes, but our business case continues, our business model continues.
It must do.
Up to TRL 7,
Exactly.
but by another 6 months afterwards, you're going to be at TRL 8, but that's not funded.
Exactly.
So
Exactly.
Okay.
Yeah.
Cool. All right. Go on. One last question.
That's the fourth and last question.
It's the fourth question.
Richard Miller, Transport Scotland. Nothing to do with Scotland or transport or whatever. What's the chances of the date of 11th of January slipping?
Low.
It'll be an extension, obviously, but...
Low, because, as we've just been discussing, the later we close this, the later we award you, the less time you've got to deliver. We argued about whether to end this before Christmas, but then we were like, we're not going to touch it over Christmas. So we may as well give you that time. But if this slips, you're losing more and more time, and your 24-month project is becoming a 20-month, an 18-month, a 16 month. So yeah, this is not going to move.
Apologies for asking the question, but you had to.
No, it's fine. And apologies if I've ruined anybody's Christmas, but... Right, cool. I've got a couple more slides. Well, thank you, Richard. I'll just run through those, and then I think we're for a coffee break. Thank you for the new people coming in. I will jump back one slide, and then I'll go forward again. The Commercialising CAM deployment is with the ministers. That's all we can say about it. If you know people in CCAV, don't bug them, because they're not allowed to say anything. We hope to be able to tell you by the end of this month. Thank you, and a sorry. CAM supply chain competition is open, closes on the 11th of January. QR code up there, themes up there. Do grab CCAVers and Zenzic to talk, and Richard and Robert to talk about that competition. Okay, so Catherine mentioned earlier some of the wider work we're doing, and at the very bottom you had that public outreach, public engagement banner. This great self-driving exploration is a first of its kind, definitely here in the UK, and I think pretty globally. It's some standout work. We toured the country. We went to Alnwick, Manchester and Taunton, and we engaged with fixed groups of people. So over a course of a couple of weeks, 50 people engaged with us. We talked to them about self-driving and all of the various different things. And then we had a weekend exposition where Origo came with 3 of their vehicles. Lots of people got to travel on those vehicles and experience those vehicles. And then that core of about 50 people got interviewed again, and we did more engagement with them. And we did that in those 3 locations. It wasn't just talking to them. We experimented with new research methods. So EEG headsets, so seeing their brain waves as they were riding in the vehicles and what that felt to them and what was good and what was scary. We did specific young persons engagement, so we engaged with teenagers about what they saw in the future and how they wanted to work it. So all of this work took place over the summer and is currently in Write Up. The next CAM cohort, I'm going to bring Bex along and she'll give you the full detail of this with the video and all there, but I just wanted to highlight that this has happened. Bex and I have got a crazy idea to do a students CAM cohort in March. So like this sort of event, but not with you here, but with a couple of local schools, maybe try and get a local university to come in and help us, and I'd look to some of you guys to come and help us run that. So that's mine and Beck's crazy pub idea this week, so we'll be working on that over Christmas. But it was a really good opportunity for some people across the UK who've never experienced CAM, and those of us in this room that do it regularly kind of get a bit blasé about it, to really engage. And it is, unless others who have CAM vehicles in the room know otherwise, over 1,000 members of public took a ride in a self-driving vehicle, so 12 days in 3 locations. That is we think the highest number across any of our trials. Obviously, CAV4 is going to blow that out of the water with 10,000 passengers a week, but up until now, this is the most people. 426 passenger carrying trips, over 190 people engaged in the conversation, and I've written Manchester twice for some reason. And then, as I said, we did that additional thing with some young people and some digitally disengaged. We engaged with ethnic minorities and lower socio-economic groups, all to understand, like, where's the difference, what's helping, what's not helping. And 180 of those participants used the EEG headsets. And if you've ever played with those things, they're very weird. And just some photos of the Origo shuttle and the Origo smaller pod. They also had the cargo dolly there, so people could see what a possible future could look like. Obviously, we have other partners in the room, but Origo and Britain Thinks did this work for us. So it was really good opportunity to get out there, and we're really looking forward to continuing this work, and Bex and I are working together to do some more funding of it, so we'll potentially try and run this every year, go to 3 different locations and engage. So that's an opportunity. And once Bex has got all the learning sorted, we'll share that as well. And hooking back onto the deployments, and I said no questions, but that relationship is one of the ones I'd hope that any of the winning deployments bids would engage in, and will talk to me and Bex about how you do your public engagement, how do you talk to the public about your services. Cool. So that's from CCAV at the moment. A whirlwind run through what we've done, what we're doing, and where we're going next. Where's Robert? Tony, we've got 15 minutes? 20?
15, yeah, 20 minutes.
Yeah, so we'll come back just after 11. And we'll go on from there. I'm just checking if Richard's got anything in his slides that I missed. Nope, so cool. And we've done the Q&A. So we'll have a coffee break, come back just after 11, and we'll hand over to Zenzic, and they'll talk about some of the supply chain work that they've been doing for myself and the Auto Council that informed the supply chain competition. Thank you very much, and we'll see you in a few minutes. Apologies, we are running a little bit behind time, but that's my fault for being late this morning. So, as I mentioned earlier, we've been working with Zenzic on since 2016, pretty much. First on helping us support CAM testbed and where that goes, and now, your slides are timed. I'm going to go back to there. Sorry, spoiler. So Mark and Bavin are going to come and talk a little bit about Zenzic and what they're doing, and a little bit about the supply chain work they've been doing for me to help inform the supply chain competition, but also the Auto Council and how we look at CAM supply chain as a whole. So without further ado, I'm not going to press the button. I'm going to let you do that.
It's always a delightful moment when you realise the slides are going to advance regardless of what you say. So if I can keep up with the slides, I'll be doing well. Let's just start there and see how we go. My name is Mark Cracknell. I'm the Programme Director of Connected Automated Mobility at Zenzic. And we're going to I'll see if we can get us vaguely back on time here. So I will move through. We've got two parts to the Zenzic show today. The first is a little bit about who we are, where we came from, which we'll touch on this slide very shortly. A little bit about how we can support you as part of this competition. So what is it that we can do, what can't we do, how might we be of help for you? And then I'll introduce Bhavin, who's our Senior Insight Strategist, who's going to talk a little bit about some of the work we've done about understanding, when we say CAM, what does that actually mean? Because it can get very big very quickly. And when we talk about the UK and our capabilities here, what are we good at? It is going to keep going, isn't it? I'm going to fight the slides for the next 10 minutes. So hopefully that will give you a bit of the context, the broader context, and you'll understand how we can help. And there's a few of us in the room, and I'll get the Zenzic people to put their hands up at some point so you know who we are. Come and talk to us. But let's wind the clock back. Who are Zenzic? Where do we come from? Why are we here? Back in, I think, 2015, a call for evidence was put out by government and said, self-driving, what's that about? What should we do? Is it important? Should we care? And among other people, the Automotive Council of the UK came back and said, in short, yes, there's two big things you should think about. One is around R&D, collaborative R&D, utilising all the great capability in the UK. And the other thing was around testing as a very specific and particular opportunity the UK had. And as part of that, recommended that there was a coordinating, convening body put in place that would support what we now call CAM Testbed UK. And that organisation is Zenzic. So we were established from the outset to help support CAM in the UK, focusing initially on the test beds, and pleased to see quite a number of the test bed partners here today. And our job is to bring people together, and we've been doing that over the last 4 or 5 years with CAM Testbed UK. Now we kind of look to expand that role, and CCAV have asked us to support more broadly beyond just the test beds, but everybody working in CAM here in the UK. So at its heart, and a lot of this I think is messages you've already heard, the UK is doing a lot in this space. The UK actually is quite competitive in this space, and the reason that is true is because collaboration is at the heart of what we do. And part of our role at Zenzic is we go around the world working and talking to various people. And the biggest bit of feedback we always get about the UK is what impresses people is our ability to collaborate. So lots of examples of things that are probably too small to really read and see on there. You know, the big wheel there is all of the collaborative R&D projects that CCAV have funded with Innovate over the last 4 or 5 years. Things like CAM Testbed UK, SME scale-up programs that we run at Zenzic, things like the roadmap. All of this works because in the UK we have such a rich ecosystem of partners who collaborate. And I will say the C word, collaboration, so many times, but I'm not going to apologise for it because it is really important. And actually it's really important to us here at Zenzic. So what do we do? How can we help? Why are we here? Well, at Zenzic, in essence, we are here to bring people together. So our role is specifically in this emerging CAM ecosystem, is to help people find people, connect people. And in fact, we do that through what we call sort of our 3 pillars. So the first is around insights. So that's around understanding, knowing what CAM means, what's going on, having an evidence base there. The second is around some small targeted innovation projects which strike at particular challenges that we help solve. And the third is through collaboration, which is about bringing people together. So the insights pillar, so things that you might have heard about. So the UK CAM roadmap to 2030, which we put out, I think, 2.5, maybe 3 years ago now, was the first vision that the UK had for what CAM wants to achieve, bought into by 200 organisations. So we have that, and that was a piece of work we put out. Bhavin will talk about the supply chain report, which we published just in September this year, which again digs to that next level of understanding about what is happening here in the ecosystem. The innovation, I've spoken about the scale-up programme where we help startups and SMEs gain access to CAM Testbed UK, this world-class set of testing capability, help them accelerate their products to market. So if that sounds interesting to you and you haven't heard of it, come and talk to us, and we do a few other programmes in that space. And then when it comes to collaboration, there's a number of things we do. We support CAM Testbed UK to help them to continue to work with each other. We have what we call our CAM communities, where we focus on particular areas. Freight and logistics is a key one. We're looking at insurance as an interesting community to bring people together around. But more broadly, being in the community, talking to people and coming to events like today to help you guys make friends and find each other. So lots on the core programme. I won't dwell too much on that, other than to say one of the core things that we do, and a new part of our toolbox, is around supporting organisations around the competitions. So you've heard a lot from CCAV and Innovate around the competition itself and that process of how the competition runs. We don't get so involved in that. We're certainly not part of the assessment process that goes on there. Tony already spoke about KTN and the role KTN plays across a whole host of areas supporting people. We take a kind of quite focused role in the supply chain and deployment competition support that we can help you with. In essence, we are here at your disposal, and I'll caveat that by saying we're a relatively small team, so I can't promise you all the hours in the day from all the team. But we are here to help you broadly across these three areas of essentially the timeline of the projects in this competition. The first is around this upfront bid process place. So for supply chain, that's where we are today. So from the announcement and the launch, and as David said earlier, some of the work that we do goes into help supporting and informing the scope of those competitions. But from the announcement of those, we are here to help people prepare themselves to find partners, to bring consortia together, to put bids in and help provide opinion and I'll say advice, but into people who are building those, so that you can test questions with us. So if you have questions that maybe you don't want to ask CCAV, or maybe you don't want to ask Innovate, you can ask us. I can't promise that we can give you the magic answer, but you know, we're here as another voice, as a sounding board for you as you build your consortia together. You know, we have a lot of contacts out in the CAM area. Specifically, we have a lot of knowledge about what is happening in the UK, and so all of that, you know, is maybe a reason that there might be questions that we can support you with. The middle part of that is around the delivery of the projects. Now, we don't get involved in the monitoring of those projects, and we're not the monitoring officers, and we're not sort of looking after that. But again, available for support during the delivery of that project lifecycle. So we all know, if you've done one of these projects, or probably any project ever, things crop up as you go through, challenges arise, and we are on hand to help support you through that, answer questions, bring in stakeholders, perhaps find some challenge now and again if required. And the third part of support that we give through these sort of competitions and these projects is in this exploitation phase. And that's something I think is quite new, and something we are kind of working through at the moment. With both the deployment competition and this supply chain competition, it's all about commercialisation. Right? I think that's been very clear right from Lord Grimstone, a minister or two ago, who set the very clear direction, wants to see the investment made by government and industry, you know, come into fruition. And what that means is we don't want projects to finish on the 31st of March. And we'll set that as the dead date on 2025, not David's negotiations notwithstanding. We don't want projects to finish then. We shake hands, pat each other on the back, walk off into the sunset and say, wasn't that a great time we had? If that's all we get out of the projects, then I think we're not achieving the ambitions. What we want to do is see at that point the projects have delivered some great effort and work. We have products or services that have been accelerated to the point of market readiness, the point of commercialisation. The question is, then what? What happens? How do you exploit that? How do you find opportunities to make that a commercial success? And that's something that we're quite focused on at Zenzic. So it's the support during the project to keep that at the front of the mind when the deadlines are approaching and your quarterly MO meeting is coming up and you've got things to report on. It's easy to focus on the delivery of the project and lose sight of why we're doing it. So something that will be helping support the winners of these competitions is to look at how do you exploit. How can we help either raise profile, promote, support what you're doing, work with sort of DIT colleagues and others to kind of raise the profile, look at what it means in a global context to have UK competitiveness. And we're very keen, you know, partnering with the deployments and the supply chain that we focus on. What essentially is a burgeoning internal market here in the UK with deployments that are coming. What does it mean to be a supply chain into that? But what does it mean to be a competitive part of the global supply chain? So there's a lot there, and maybe that feels a little bit sort of woolly or a little bit unclear. I think we're clear these are the kinds of support that we can provide. And as you get into this sort of starting point, and for those who are successful, we start to deliver, we want to have a conversation and sit down and say, right, well, what is it that your consortia really needs? How can Zenzic support you in this kind of realm of the pillars that we have around insights, innovation and collaboration in these areas. And so it's an open dialogue that we want to have with you about how we can support. We are paid by CCAV to be here to support you, and ultimately, we will be paid by the winners of these competitions, because as you will have seen, if you've seen the scope, there is a levy, industrial contribution that is applied to that, which comes to Zenzic, which allows us to be here to support you. So the supply chain support, there are some things that we don't do, right? We're not going to write the bids for you. That's a little bit too close to it. We don't do the project monitoring. We don't do the assessment. We don't do any financial monitoring or control. So in terms of that kind of formal management of the competition, that sits as it always has, and rightly so, with Innovate and with CCAV. But what we can do is, across those three areas, help the quality of the bids that you put in, around the conversations that we can have, the support during the delivery process for any challenges that you might face, and then that look at what comes next. How do we exploit? How do we genuinely, in maybe March 2026, look back and say this competition really made a difference for your organisation, but for the UK in this kind of globally competitive space. So as I say, Zenzic are here for support. If you win, there's money to be paid. So I would encourage you to talk to us, start understanding now how we can help you, help us understand how we can help you, and so that relationship, that we move on together with, is really productive and fruitful. The last thing I'll say before I invite Bhavin up is to say one of the things I think is really interesting about this concept of a supply chain is that over the last 4 or 5 years, we've put a lot of investment, both industry and government, into CAM, and it's seeded a huge amount of capability. Is it 200 organisations or something like that have been involved across the IMF projects? And many of you here will have been involved in that. Huge amounts of capability, but it's an ecosystem. What we want to do is start drawing that together into something that starts to look like a supply chain. And the question is, well, what does that really mean? What does it mean to have a supply chain? How big is it? Where does it stop? As you start connecting things, you're talking about infrastructure, and then you're talking about traffic lights, so you're really talking about lamp posts and light bulbs. Where does it end when you start to connect all these things together? So a while ago, CCAV and David commissioned us to have a look at, off the back of the roadmap and some other work we've been doing with the Automotive Council, to say, well, let's try and understand what the supply chain is, develop a framework for it, and we issued a report out in September. If you haven't seen that, we can share a link to that, but it's on the Zenzic website. And Bhavin is the architect of that report. He knows all of the answers about that. So rather than me trying to make some stuff up now, I'll invite Bhavin up, who'll take you through a little bit about the work that we've done there, share a bit of that insight with you. Bhavin.
I like that Mark doesn't assume that I'm not going to make it up either. So as Mark mentioned, we published a report in September, and it really did two things. It first tried to answer that question of what actually is a CAM supply chain. That's a pretty complicated thing to grasp. And then looked at the areas of opportunity for the UK. So the slides I'm going to take you through now, as I try not to fall over, the slides I'm going to take you through now is first, what is that framework? What is a CAM supply chain? What does it look like? And then what did we find in terms of the areas of opportunity for the UK? So when we began this project, when David came to Zenzic and was like, well, we need to figure out what this all means, we had this idea or this hypothesis that we're moving forward from relatively disparate ecosystem, and we're starting to see proper relationships gather and things form in a more supply chain-like manner. We can still use the term ecosystem, David. I shan't stop using it, but for the purpose of the rest of my presentation, I will tend to call it a supply chain. But to do that, we need to understand what's actually in a CAM supply chain and what's outside of a CAM supply chain. Because as I'm sure you're all aware, CAM is quite a cross-sector beast, and it's difficult to fully grasp what's in and out of scope. So the first thing we went and did is to break it down into a number of high-level categories. And we settled on these 12 top-level categories. There are actually 11 plus other. The other just tends to incorporate consultancies. But for the purpose of this analysis, we do include that. And that's everything from the research that underpins the technology to the hardware, to the software, to the tools. How do you finance that? The test services, the engineering services, the comms and data infrastructure, which we've already talked about this morning. But we also do include the operators of a future CAM service and, importantly, insurance and legal. Now, we came up with these 11 top-level categories. Most, if not all of them, also have a number of subcategories. And in the end, come September this year, I think there are 79 subcategories that sit underneath this. So we can go into quite a strong level of granularity. The key point here, it's all CAM related. So the categories and subcategories within hardware, for example, pertain to CAM stuff. So we're not going to go down all the way into every single component that makes up a vehicle. That's already well known. We're most interested in the stuff that's most related to CAM. So now that we had these categories, we needed to understand, well, who sits where, what do we have in the UK, and then by axiom look at, well, the opportunities for us. So we went out and we identified 250 organisations that sit within the CAM supply chain within the UK. I always like to joke that 250 is too neat a number. It does make it sound like I made it up, but I promise you it's real, and this is how it breaks down. And the split here you see is actually between those that we managed to interview, those that we managed to survey, and together there was about 90 organisations in the CAM ecosystem that we gathered very detailed data on, and those that we didn't really have a chance to go and talk to or get a response from our survey, which is the additional. So most of the analysis, if not all the analysis, subsequently is based on very detailed data from about 90 organizations. When we started the project, we were hoping for about 30, so I'm quite pleased about the level of responses and engagement we got from industry. So in terms of the key data that we gathered, we looked at geographically where organizations are spread, what category they fit into, and we did allow organizations to self-select. So they picked the category that they thought was the best representation of themselves. A slight side note is we also allowed people to pick a secondary category for those that cut across multiple areas. We didn't then go into tertiary and all that type of thing, as it gets really complicated really quickly. So yeah, we didn't go that far. We looked at the size of the organization, we looked at the core skills that underpin that organization, and then this is quite interesting, we started to look at who are the customers, both in terms of organizations as well as category level, who do they supply to, so we can start to see that picture of the supply chain. And then we also asked about their view on how competitive their particular category is. So if an organization sat within hardware, we would ask them, well, globally, how competitive is hardware in the UK? And finally, we also did ask about their estimates in terms of growth. So we can start to unpick where are the value propositions. So when we began the project, we had a hypothesis that you could move through those categories, starting with research, add a bit of hardware, add a bit of software, and kind of in a more linear manner, get all the way to the end of the supply chain, which is your vehicle running around on the roads providing a service. So the reality is a CAM supply chain is a lot more complicated, probably to absolutely no surprise to everybody in this room. And I won't go through this diagram in detail, but there are two things that I want to point out. The firstly is the orange box in the middle there, which is labeled Tier 1. That could also really be labeled something like a platform provider. That's the culmination of a lot of technology, a lot of research into a platform or a collection of Tier 1 components that feed into an OEM. The second thing, and quite notable in the CAM supply chain, is a slight change to a traditional automotive supply chain, and that is your OEM is now part of the supply chain rather than the end of the chain. Here, the end of the chain is your operator. The ramifications of that and what that means for power, I don't know. I don't think anyone knows at this moment in time, but it's interesting. It is worth noting that many operators are kind of acting as an OEM at the moment, so there are organizations that blur the two lines, But the expectation is, and the feedback that we got from both the interviews and the surveys, is that that will disaggregate over time. So at the moment, this is our best understanding of what makes up a CAM supply chain and using the categorization that we developed in this project. Before I go on to some of the key findings, I just want to say that we have built alignment across the ecosystem with government and industry. Both David and Mark have alluded to this fact. The findings of this project has informed the scope of the supply chain competition, and David and his team have adopted the framework into CCAV, and this was supported by the Automotive Council, and the Automotive Council has adopted as well this framework in a way of understanding what is a CAM supply chain. So it's really great that we can sing off the same hymn sheet. But I'm sure you're all wondering, what did we actually find and what are the interesting parts? So I'm going to briefly take you through some of the top level findings. Obviously the full report is on the website. I will take out my bias when I say go download it and read it because it is interesting. But I would say that because I authored it. So apart from the specific category findings, which we'll come on to in a minute, there were 5 core themes that came out from the interviews and survey. And briefly, I'll just go over them. So the first 2 here speak to the need for collaboration to unlock the potential within the UK when it comes to development and deployment of these technologies. And the first point here talks about having coordinated activities, which hopefully you'll agree we aren't on that path of unlocking. The third point here is around needing a strong market pull for the services. So the feedback that we got is that we need a strong operator market to be able to push forward the CAM supply chain. And then the last 2 kind of core themes that don't quite fit neatly into our categorization is, one, a knowledge-based industry requires skilled resources, and skilled resources are fairly scarce. This is a point about upskilling and skills. In general, that's well known across not just CAM, but in other sectors as well. And then finally, there was a point here about the potential for flexible, practical business support that actually could help the CAM industry as much as some of the R&D stuff, although that's a separate point entirely, and I'm sure we can chat about that at another point. In terms of the geographic distribution of organizations that we identify, this is based on the interviews and the survey data. This is how it looks like, and this is where I go into weatherman mode. As you can see, a collection of organizations in the southeast, as well as numerous in the Midlands, as you might expect based on the automotive strength in the UK. But we do see some spread across the UK, and I appreciate it might not be the easiest to see the key on the screen, so do have a look in the report. But it gives you a flavour of the geographic distribution and where organisations are and where they are operating, and by category. As I mentioned, we asked people about their views on how competitive the UK is for their particular category. And we see a little bit of a spread, but there are some common things that we can pull out from here. One, stuff around research, software, some elements of tools and engineering services. We're generally viewed to be either very competitive or world leading. There is some disagreement in viewpoints, because even in software, we are apparently not competitive, somewhat competitive, very competitive, and world leading all at the same time. So clearly, exactly what we mean by that does vary on the organisation and where they sit. But in general, we can see that things like software, we are viewed to be competitive in the UK. And when we start to take the framework and when we start to look at the views and the feedback, we can actually start to map out where are our strengths in terms of UK capabilities using the framework that we developed. So things on the left-hand side, which are deemed to be strengths, is software, particular data, AI, safety and security, research, tools, in particular simulation, test services, and insurance and legal. Insurance and legal, by the way, is quite an interesting one, because that's based on traditional strength within the UK. There aren't that many organisations that have a strong CAM presence, but the expectation is they will pivot, and there's a lot of incumbent strength within the UK to do so. And then all the way on the right-hand side there, we've got stuff around hardware manufacturing. And what I mean by that is large-scale hardware manufacturing for CAM. It's just very difficult to do in the UK for pretty obvious reasons of cost. When we combined the strength of the capability, views on competitiveness, growth estimates, as well as the bespoke feedback from the interviews, we can actually start to understand where are their greatest areas of opportunity for the UK and where the opportunity may be a little bit smaller. The key takeaway, and I'm not going to go through this line by line, but the key takeaway is, in general, the greatest areas of opportunity for the UK are in areas with low capex. So it's a knowledge-based, it's the skills, it's the understanding. That even is the same case even for hardware, but our play, based on the feedback, is around the development and the design of the hardware, not the mass production of it. There might be one that you look at and go, that's a bit weird, why is test services down at the bottom? But there is a caveat to that, which is almost all the test services also provide engineering services, which is one of the top one there. So in the next iteration of this work, I'll probably change that a little bit, how we represent that. So that was a very quick run through the top level findings. This is a QR code. I'm pretty sure the QR code does work. If it doesn't, just tap up one of our Zenzicers in the room and we'll send you the link for the report. But yeah, just the main takeaway is we have a framework by which we can understand the CAM supply chain, and then we can start to look at the strengths, challenges and opportunities for the UK. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Barry. Blinding myself. And we're back on time. We've got 5 minutes for questions. There we go.
Thank you. Question for Mark, please. When you're going through the original bid activity,
Sorry. Tony is here with the mic.
Thanks very much. Kate Chandler from Synthesis.
Just shout. Is it working?
Hold on a second. No, just carry on. I'll speak loudly. Hi, Kate Chandler from Synthesis. Mark, when you were discussing the original consortium and the bid process, what are the confidentiality levels that are associated with that? For example, if a bid is not successful, do you gather the ideas for the IP or that scenario to bring back into future competitions? Because, of course, any discussion or collaboration may well be quite world-leading in its ideas, but if you're not successful in the bid, then that could be extrapolated and put out onto the open market.
Yeah, very, very good question. So at the heart of it, Zenzic is a not-for-profit organisation. So any conversation that we have, by its nature is treated sort of commercially in confidence. And so something that's really important and key to us is that the conversations we have obviously are not shared. We are open to NDAs or anything that you might want to put in place so that we can, share the appropriate level of information. When it comes to great project ideas that maybe ultimately don't get funding, we wouldn't seek to actively then try and take that project and do something else. But what we might do is one of two things: is support that consortia finding other opportunities to leverage funding. Now, whether that would be sort of horizon funding or other calls that are open, and perhaps signpost to other options where maybe it might be more successful. Or the other might be to take the highest level concept of what that good idea is and fold that into some of our insights work. So not the detail of what that project would be, because I think that knowledge, that IP of that concept is not ours to share. But the premise of maybe what it's driving to might be something that from a government perspective is good to understand, because it might inform either a future strength area in the supply chain framework we've seen, or perhaps inform potential future funding calls. So the detail of anything that's shared is with us is not shared, across consortia, across partners. But if it's an unsuccessful bid, we would certainly want to support you finding other opportunities to get funding, or maybe taking the concept level of the premise back to government to say, look, there's an opportunity here for something maybe that wasn't quite in scope or didn't quite fit with the competition.
And that goes for us as CCAV and Innovate UK as well, because we'll all see the bids as well. The competitions aren't our only source of funding, and I'm actually talking to Innovate UK for the next time, because we've got Edge coming today, which is business support, but there's also Innovate UK loans and Innovate UK investor partnerships. So I'm going to explore those a little bit more, and basically there'll be other options. So if it's a good idea, it's just not quite right, we're not just going to go away. We're certainly not going to steal your idea, but I'd hope we can come back around and go, well, actually, how else can we support you? And that might just be from Zenzic as a help you meet the right people, or it might be from us looking for other ways. So, cool. Anybody else? There we go, at the front. Tony's on his way. He fixed the mic.
It's kind of a comment and a question as well, particularly to do with the report we've just seen. To suggest that manufacturing in the UK is a problem, I think belies some of our core competences and capabilities. And having spent the last couple of years up at Nissan, seeing one of the most efficient car plants in the world, bar none, I think actually what we need to do is better learn from each other. And I appreciate there's a big difference from starting from scratch, as most of the manufacturers are in this kind of space and there. But I wonder if there's a role to look at how do we help those companies achieve that scale, rather than, I'm not suggesting you're dismissing manufacturing in the UK, but rather than just kind of pushing it into one corner. So I just wonder if there's a way of using Zenzic and DFT and everybody together to look at how do we help these innovative companies scale to achieve those kinds of levels of production, because otherwise all the IP just will end up going elsewhere.
Yeah, so I think the way we phrase it is we recognise that the manufacturing category is the biggest challenge, right? So we're not saying we should ignore it, it's not worth doing, but we recognise that it's a big challenge to be competitive in that space. I think the other thing is we absolutely recognise that for the UK to be, to have a really strong internal market, but also be globally competitive, the question of scale is critical. So how do we move beyond a handful of vehicles in a trial or a small-scale deployment into hundreds, thousands, tens of thousands of either vehicles or components or products or services, etc. And so I would definitely subscribe to, trying to understand and learn what it takes to get to scale. Now, whether that means we do the manufacturing ourselves or it's partnerships or something, I'm open to that. The question of scale, I think, is critical. Otherwise, we've got 3 or 4 years to run, and then, where are we if we can't get to scale? So I think that's the most important point. I think we're just recognising the unique challenge of manufacturing and being competitive in this space. It will be, and this is the Cracknell view, will be quite targeted, I think. We shouldn't, blanket go for manufacturing as our top opportunity, but it might be there are specific use cases or areas where the manufacturing is an opportunity for the UK for good reasons that you've highlighted.
Yep. And off the back of that, so CCAV within BAYS sits in advanced manufacturing, and we're doing lots of work across that unit at the moment. So that's us, that's automotive, that's aero, that's maritime, looking at what does manufacturing mean for the UK as we move to the future, how do we support it, what do we need to do. So there's a lot more adjacent work happening as well, which will focus down into that. And my voice in that conversation tends to be, our companies aren't traditional manufacturers, but they're manufacturing. So how do we work? How does that happen? So yeah, that is a conversation we're having. Cool. Yes, and then John, and then we'll go for lunch.
I just also want to say that the understanding and the know-how, including the example you suggested, absolutely is seen as something that is a strength and something we can learn from. So there is a bit of a distinction there. The points that Mark made is it's still a challenge, and that's the difficulties, particularly when you then compare it to other areas of the supply chain. It's a challenge.
Cool. John?
John Mcnichol from Local Motors. Unless I was distracted at that point, I didn't notice that you mentioned cyber security products and services in that supply chain somewhere, and I wondered if that was a deliberate subcategory somewhere, or whether, because it has been acknowledged that we are really great in this country at cyber security. So maybe you could speak to that.
It's there. It is there in a number of locations. So it depends on what you're doing. So there are cyber elements of hardware. There are cyber elements of data and communication. There are even cyber elements in engineering services. So it does depend on your organization more than anything else. It is still, if I go on to, I'm going backwards. Why am I going backwards?
I'm going forwards.
It's still there in terms of some of the software components with safety and security. So the answer is it depends on exactly what you're doing, but absolutely that strength is not hidden, it's up front.
And again, as Catherine mentioned earlier, we have got a new cyber and data lead joining us on the CAVPAS team as well, so a lot more effort coming from CCAV over the next few months on cyber and the complexities. And yes, we are world leading, and we should exploit that. Cool, right, Tony, you said something about Harry Potter.
So, lunch is on the main hall, I think, or maybe a note the exact direction, but I think it's across the...
So we're going back outside across the campus. Okay. Are we, is this room secure for bags, or should we take everything with us? Okay. I'm confused by Harry Potter. What were you...
Right, so I hope lunch was good. Bit of an experience. We're now going to proceed with the next section, which is Catherine is going to go over the CAVPAS, give you a bit of more of an update on CAVPAS. Yeah, so over to you. Thank you.
Thank you. I hope everyone enjoyed their lunch and manages to stay awake through the graveyard slot of the after lunch. So we'll look forward to this. So we'll see if we can keep your interest a bit in telling you a bit about our safety programme and what we are doing. So as I mentioned earlier, CAVPAS is the government's kind of safety and cybersecurity programme. It's about identifying those bits, and again, we can share the slides for those who want them afterwards, so don't feel you need to take photos of everything, although you're welcome to if you want. It's about identifying those elements of CAV design, deployment and use that are critical to road safety. We have a whole bunch of ways of assessing the safety of conventional vehicles, from testing the vehicle before it goes on the road, to driver licensing, to ongoing roadworthiness, whether that's MOT or different testing for larger vehicles. So it's about sort of looking at all of those sorts of processes, thinking how might they need to change or adapt or develop new ones for CAM technologies. And it's thinking about the government side of it, what do we need to have in place to make that happen? It's about supporting that safety and security framework, which I talked about earlier, the loop of approval, authorization, in-use regulation, and all of that. And it involves a mix of government policy development, research projects, implementation plans for agencies, the government agencies and the like. So it's a really mixed thing, and collaboration was already mentioned as a kind of keyword earlier. It's still a keyword now. We have a really multidisciplinary team that's involved in this, involving lots of teams across government, but also, as I said, all those motoring agencies who are actually the ones who are going to be most likely delivering this sort of on the ground, as it were, when the time comes. So that's just a very brief introduction. I thought I'd say a little bit about what is and isn't in scope, because potentially CAVPAS covers so many things. So we've had to kind of bound it a little. So it does cover connected and automated vehicles, all sorts of different vehicle types, all sorts of different deployments and advanced trials. The whole life of the vehicle, that's kind of quite a key one for us. It's not just about testing something and then letting it go. It's about that whole life kind of safety and security. It covers things like the government skills development that's required to be able to implement the processes that we're coming up with. And it identifies potential kind of regulatory barriers and informs the regulatory change, but the actual kind of regulatory work is taken forward by a different team. It's sort of also within my area. So out of scope is what I was saying earlier about the safety ambition. So that's something we're working on more broadly, and as I say, is informed by the consultation that's just taken place. It doesn't cover driver assistance systems, so those are dealt with by our International Vehicle Standards team. Obviously, there is some kind of linkage and overlap in those areas, so we're not stopping that where it occurs, but it's not specifically targeted at those driver assistance systems. It doesn't cover things like the industry skills development, the industry testing and approvals infrastructure that might need to be developed. And I say, I think that's covered most of those things anyway. So I already talked a little bit about the 6 work streams, and I'm going to go through each of those in some more detail. The other thing I just wanted to mention here is we also have what we call our expert advisory panel. So this is a mix of experts who have different technical expertise. Some of them come from different industries so that we can get learnings from other places. And they fulfill kind of a challenge function for us, sort of saying, are you really approaching this in the best way? How might you be doing things differently? So they're kind of an important part as well. So going on to some of the detail. So this is workstream 1, which is the workstream that's looking at developing the standards and technical requirements for the approval sort of stage primarily. These 5 work packages identified here are ones which we let out as research projects. We deliberately let them separately rather than as one big project because we wanted some challenge in between the different work packages. So that was a deliberate decision. And they've looked at a range of different areas, and you can see the different companies and organisations that have been involved in delivering on these. These have now reported. There's about 1,500 pages of final report, I understand, that have come out of these research projects. There's a lot of work been going on. And that is now being digested by the workstream lead on this, which is Mike Brasher in our International Vehicle Standards team in DFT. And that's going alongside this sort of 6th box here, which is the work that's going on elsewhere. So things like the interactions we're having at the United Nations Economic Commission for Europe, which is the international kind of regulatory development organisation, where we've been part of that for years. We continue to be part of that. As I said, we want to learn from wherever the information is coming. So if that comes from other countries and the research they've done and the findings they've got, then so be it, we'll learn from that. But the idea is to develop this GB approval scheme for highly automated vehicles. That's focusing initially on low-speed automated vehicles. That was the focus of these projects. But I will say that we've also looked at it from where can we expand that, and which bits of those findings apply more broadly. We started at low-speed automated driving because that's where we you know, from our information with industry, we sort of thought the initial use cases might be, but that doesn't mean we're not looking at other things, and we're determined to be ready when we need to be in this area. So develop the appropriate standards as we need to for things that are coming forward, which is why kind of interaction with you guys is so important, because we need to, you know, people to tell us what they're thinking, what's coming forward. So just to show you in a little bit more detail what's in some of those work packages and how those fit into that circle framework that we showed earlier. So as I say, the kind of main focus of this work stream is around the approval side, so it's no surprise that most of the work packages feed into that. But actually, when it comes down to it, quite a lot of them feed into some of the other areas as well. You know, in terms of the authorization, we're thinking about, you know, the risk management systems. We're thinking about the sort of whole life good practice and those sorts of elements. So you can see that actually, although it was initially focused on approval, actually the findings are feeding in to a whole range of different areas. And I suppose one other thing to say just on this whole kind of work stream is that we're very much, you know, as government, sticking with the kind of technology agnostic approach. We're not trying to say you have to have this particular type of technology. We're looking at the outcomes. So with those technical requirements, we'll be looking at the outcomes and not saying this is absolutely how you have to achieve those outcomes. And it will be a dialogue and a discussion of how you can evidence those outcomes have been met. And there will be, you know, guidance around that, but we do try and not sort of go with a single technology. So moving on to work stream 2, this one is particularly focused on authorization. So it's looking at things like, you know, how do you register yourself as an ASDI? What are the deployment conditions that we might set for a particular authorization? You know, so we talk about operational design domains and operational domains, and we're thinking, oh, you know, how do we set those conditions? And that would be working with the ASDI coming forward, saying this is what we want to do, and it would bound where that self-driving was, you know, the self-driving threshold was met. So we're not saying you have to be able to self-drive in every condition, in every location, whatever. It would be bounded by those deployment conditions. It's also looking at things like the evidence required for the authorization, how you would demonstrate ongoing compliance, and detail things like the administrative processes for authorization. So all of that detail is being worked up. So I spoke earlier about primary legislation and secondary legislation. I don't know how familiar people are with that as a concept, but primary legislation is the bills that then turn into acts that kind of give us the overarching powers and the new legal entities, those sorts of things. The secondary legislation will be where the detail is, and we're working on those at the same time at the moment, so the teams are working on both of those things together. Then work stream 3 is looking at safe use. So this covers quite a multitude of sins, as you will see, and it's very much about all of those interactions of the vehicle with other road users, with the drivers, if there are them, with passengers, and understanding the safety of that and security of that vehicle over its whole lifespan. There's quite a lot of sort of things here, and I could probably go into quite a lot of detail on them. If people want to know more detail, then they can always sort of come back and talk to me. But covering all sorts of things from the kind of licensing issues, how to show that you're carrying on with that, meeting the traffic rules, things like human-machine interface, so both sort of within the vehicle where there is a driver or a user in charge some of the time, but also with other parties on the road where there isn't a driver. So all sorts of different elements kind of make up this work stream. Work stream 4 is probably more for us, really, than for you guys, but it's how we can make sure that government is ready to implement all of these new processes and requirements. So we're looking at kind of whether we have the right skills and expertise, who's going to do what, how we manage information that's coming in, how we think about enforcement and that in-use regulation element, and also sort of ensuring the access to assets. That doesn't necessarily mean we own the assets. So for those of you in Testbed UK, sorry, it doesn't mean we're going to be commissioning a whole load more new assets to be built, but it means that there are certain things that we might want to have access to as part of the testing regime. And then work stream 5, I spoke a little bit about this earlier, and it's very much a kind of key for us at the moment. It's not limited to those who are successful in competitions. It's very much open to all. Anyone that's thinking about deployment, either as a trial or as an early deployment commercial use case, do come and talk to us. We can, talk you through how to navigate the existing regulation until such time as we get the new regulations in place. We can advise on things like potential exemption routes that may be open to people. We will be, as part of this work stream, also looking at safety case audits for those government-funded trials. And all of that learning and all of that interaction gets fed back into the other work streams so that we try and make the processes work in real life. It's no good us just sitting alone in our ivory tower and writing something that then is not practical for anyone to implement. And then finally, we've got the cyber security and data work stream. As I say, we pulled this out from the other work streams relatively recently, actually, because initially we'd sort of thought, well, that's part of everything else, which it is, but it also has some unique issues and problems of its own. So we have pulled it out now. Its starting place are the UNECE regulations that are already out there, of 155 and 156, around the cybersecurity management systems and software update management systems. But it's also looking at whether that's enough, whether there are any gaps there that we need to be filling. And also sort of practical issues, like one of the things that was identified was potentially some barriers to testing of cybersecurity framework in the cybersecurity measures in the UK. So we're sort of looking at that and whether there's any sort of changes that need to be made to enable that sort of testing. And things like the research into the forensic cyber investigation, so that if an incident does occur, are we able to properly investigate that and find out what's happened? As we sort of develop this work stream, we'll be working with industry to sort of build the understanding of how to manage those cyber risks. And that, I think is going to be a joint effort for all of us. It's not straightforward. I was talking to some people at lunch about how you can never completely remove that risk, but it's about managing it down to a reasonable level. And it'll also look at some of the issues around data requirements and handling. So that was kind of quite a brief run through the KEPOS program. If people want to find out more, do get in touch. I can point you in the direction of the different workstream leads. So workstream 1, as I said, is run by our International Vehicle Standards team. Workstream 2 is within CCAV on the authorization. Workstream 3 on safe use is actually run by the Road Safety Division in the Department for Transport. Workstream 4 is again within CCAV. Workstream 5 on the trials and early deployments is actually led by our Vehicle Certification Agency. And has, all of these have teams that are kind of multidisciplinary within them, and then Workstream 6 would be a CCAV lead as well in due course. We've just got a new cyber and data lead about to start, so I'm looking forward to that. So yeah, do get in touch if you want to. Thanks.
Thank you. Thanks. Okay, pitch session. So we've got several companies, about over 20 companies that have kindly submitted a 2-minute pitch. It will be 2-minute pitch. So if you see your name there, just keep a watchful eye as to where you are. Be mindful of who's in front of you, and then just kind of be ready, and we'll try and do this quite snappy, quite interactive. Make sure that they're in the particular order of how they came in. So Cranfield Uni, well done. Gunny. So yes, by all means.
Who's got a stopwatch?
I've got a stopwatch, and I will bully you out if you don't finish in 2 minutes. Okay, over to you. Sure.
So I assume I should go forward, yeah? Hello everyone, so I'm Dr. Marco Ceccotti, I'm a lecturer at Cranfield University. In case you don't know it, it's a postgraduate only university located in Bedfordshire. And our main focus as a university is technology and management. And We are one of the very few universities in the UK offering a master's degree course in connected and autonomous vehicle engineering. And so we have a lot of relevant expertise in robotic systems, cybersecurity, control systems, human factors, and vehicular technology. And here I've just put together a few examples of the most recent research projects that we've been involved with. So we have a lot of expertise on characterization of vehicle systems. You see some of our facilities to characterize chassis, to test four-wheeled vehicles on articulation rigs, to characterize tires, and to simulate sensing systems as well. We do a lot of work on the design and validation of real-time control systems, and we have our own proving ground to test it. So what you see at the center is the results of one of our projects with Delta Motorsports, Delta Cosworth these days, and where we've demonstrated optimal control of a multi-actuated vehicle, and obviously we characterized the vehicle and simulated it before. We have a proving ground with several different types of facilities. Here I'm just showing a capability to monitor traffic in real time. We can use it to evaluate platform developed outside, for example. Sorry, I'm running out of time. So we've done some work on cooperative perception and planning and a lot of research on human driver modeling. So if you're interested in collaborating with us, please get in touch with me. Thank you.
And that is how it's going to work. Okay, so next one, Inspiring Co. Hi there.
Hi everybody. Just 1 second. So I'm Steve Rotherham from Inspiring Company Limited. We've been working in the blockchain space for many years now, and my background is automotive. So I'll follow the slide, but we believe that the safety, security and scalability of and economic inclusivity needs of connected and autonomous mobility networks can only be met by open, decentralized, blockchain-based P2B, V2X consensus protocols with value settlement built in. Decentralized, cryptographic, secure human and machine identities, known as DIDs, and self-sovereign identity, SSIDs, and self-sovereign data will become the foundation of future frictionless, interoperable, data-driven mobility networks that foster permissionless innovation. That stacks up with the experience we've had. I've got 35 years experience working in the automotive industry. 7 years developing research in blockchain-based solutions in ACES and micromobility. 5 years working on mobility-related blockchain projects, and the last 3 years actually implementing this technology for an electric bike company in the US. We also have knowledge of rapidly emerging EU standards around this area, which are being driven by groups like Catena-X, Gaia-X and MoveID in the EU. So in terms of the capabilities that we offer, we've got a hardware platform that's been purposely designed for prototyping vehicle blockchain and edge-connected applications. We've got the software experience, we've got the blockchain stack with over 350,000 nodes. That was a week ago, it's now 440,000 nodes. And a pub-sub network with over 5,000 nodes. And also the access to the tools and secure workshop facilities with private roads to develop this technology. So we're interested in talking to anybody that sees the potential here.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, I'm Steve Cowper from AGMT. We started off life in the motor insurance industry, developing hardware like this that goes on to young driver, but instead of it being plugged into the vehicle, it's entirely independent of the vehicle, sensing by sticking onto the windscreen because it was the easiest way of installing it that a user could do. As a result of that, I've spent the last 10 years working in low-speed crash detection and sensing, particularly the types of crash that people don't see, these side-scraping type crashes that happen a lot, these things that are happening with vulnerable road users. We've developed this now to the point where we've got a sensing platform that we think could start to bring back some human sensing back into CAV, the type of thing that drivers see and feel. We all know that vibration when you've got a wheel that's out of alignment, those things where a windscreen gets hit by an object. We can sense those things and give back that information that if a windscreen's been hit and there's a chip in it and it's near where the sensor cameras are, you need to know about that. But normally a CAV vehicle wouldn't know about it. So it's those type of things, looking at the running gear, shock absorbers, the tires, the brakes, all of those areas, we can bring back some capability there that's currently missing. So we're looking, we work with vibration, with audio, which is privacy preserving because we process everything on board, and also accelerometer data. We've got GPS inside here as well, so we've got the whole package inside the device, but we're looking for partners in the CAV space that might want to extend out their capabilities. Particularly, we've been able to detect things like wing mirror strikes. So those things where there's very little force, but a driver would know that that's happened, but an autonomous system doesn't necessarily know that, so we can bring that back. So that's me. If anyone's interested, catch me afterwards. Thank you.
AI drivers.
Hi, I'm Tom Saunders from AI Drivers. We deliver a low-cost autonomous mobility solution for industrial application with a focus on container ports. We are the market leader, having delivered the world's first autonomous container truck for DP World in 2016. So we help the maritime industry tackle the three major problems they have, which is a shortage of drivers, increasing regulation to lower carbon emissions, and the high diesel costs. So our solution is fully tested, having been in trial for 4 years now. We've driven 160,000 kilometers and done over 2,600 test cases with the Port of Singapore Authority, which is the world's largest port authority, who is also an investor in us. And as of today, we are looking to raise funds to commercially scale the solution. So we deliver a 50% cost saving and a 2-year ROI and a 30% fuel reduction. We deploy a low-cost solution which involves retrofitting the existing hardware, so there's no infrastructure change required, which is quite a key point for adoption of this technology in this vertical. But we don't just focus on ports, we also envisage rolling this out to airports as well as logistics, and already have live contracts with Tofaz in Turkey for the autonomous tow tractors within the warehouses, as you can see here. We already generate revenue and expect to be doing double-digit growth at least for the next 2 to 3 years. There we go.
Awesome. Beam connectivity right here. There you go.
Hi, I'm Thomas Sawers, the CEO of Beam Connectivity. It's an SME, a startup just under 3 years old. We call ourselves pioneers in better connected vehicles. We're trying to improve connected vehicle systems. We're also a participant in the first cohort of the Zenzic CAM scale-up program. We have an end-to-end system that can connect a vehicle or subsystems on the vehicles, and it's built with 3 foundations in mind. Secure, with security and safety in mind, with performance in mind, so we think we are on some measures around 20 times lower latency than incumbent systems, and we're versatile. It means we can connect to new vehicle systems and vehicles normally within 1 to 2 days. It's also end-to-end. So it's got all the parts needed to build a connected vehicle system. We'd be interested in discussions around 2 things, either in projects that need connectivity as a fundamental part of what they're doing, or secondly, in projects where having connectivity may accelerate the project by getting real-time data insights or the ability to reconfigure tests on the fly. I've often talked about putting the C in CAM, and it was refreshing to see some of the questions here this morning. Question to you is, can I put the C in your project?
Okay, I think it's now Claytex. Where are we? There you go.
Hi there, I'm Mike Dempsey from Claytex. So everything we do at Claytex is about modelling and simulation. So within autonomous vehicles, that's using our AV Sandbox product line. And what that's offering is an immersive environment to be able to drop your autonomous vehicle controller into all the different test scenarios that you can run it around. So we're providing physics-based models for the sensors, for the vehicle dynamics, and accurate models of the world that you want to go and drive around. We've been involved in several Innovate UK... Well, I wasn't expecting that. That's muted when I normally do this. Where was I? Yes, we've been involved in several Innovate UK projects in the past, most recently completing the de-risk project, and applying this technology in all sorts of different vehicles, not just the sort of road vehicles you saw in the video there, but also looking at baggage tugs at airports and other kinds of industrial equipment. I guess what we're interested in here within the supply chain competition is projects that allow us to do more on the sensor modelling and the validation of those sensor models, particularly looking at how do we produce the simulation handbook that's required under the EU regulations, looking at how we can use synthetic data to help train the perception stacks and improve and make them more robust, more capable, and how we actually use simulation data to help prove that an autonomous vehicle is safe. So we can immerse your control system into this environment without changing it, because all the sensor models produce the same output message streams as the real devices. So then we can start to look at how do we test that vehicle, how does it perform, and without changing that control system, we can see how it behaves, and can we use this to prove that the system is safe. Please get in touch if you're interested in any of these things. Thank you.
There you go.
Good afternoon. I'm David Sharp. I'm Head of Engineering for Autonomous Mobility at Ocado Group, as in Ocado delivery vans that you've probably bought food from if you're lucky. We sell robotic warehouse technology around the world, along with e-commerce technology and store pick technology and routing technology, so that the world's leading retailers can provide an e-commerce service with fantastic fulfillment accuracy. It's going live in 60 different warehouses that we're currently building in America, Canada, Japan, South Korea, Europe, and Australia. So that's the destination for all these warehouses. But after the robots in the warehouse will become robots on the roads doing the delivery. So that's the next thing. So we have invested £10 million in Oxbotica and in Wave to create self-driving software for our last mile grocery delivery vehicles. And we're working with them to develop their software to turn it into something that might look a bit like this, where you've got an Ocado autonomous robotic delivery unit on the road that you can go and pick your food up from. And we're hoping to work with the UK government, which will be even better, to get the legislation in place so that we can run fleets of autonomous vehicles in the UK prior to trying them in other countries like the USA. And after the USA, even more countries like the ones we're building warehouses in. Okay, so all this is happening at the moment, potentially in great collaboration with CCAV and Zenzic and the government, all those good people. And eventually, once we've got it operational, it will be wonderful and commercially profitable for all those companies around the world, and great value for money for all the consumers. This is our journey. Maybe you contain one of the key ingredients that we need on the way. If so, drop me an email. Or see me today.
How awesome. Right, excellent. Thank you very much. just a little reminder, try and stand next to the mic, because then we can record it much better and we can keep the fidelity of the recording. Over to you now. So, there you go. Thank you.
Hello, my name is Alexis Del Rio. I work for MSC Software. So Hexagon owns MSC Software for the last few years. It's a multi-million-pound company from Sweden, working in about 54 countries around the world. And basically, we try to offer all these solutions for the autonomous driving. Mainly, I'm interested in focusing on VTD, which is our solution for developing autonomous systems. It's fully deterministic, something that not many our competitors can achieve. The graphics are also developed by us, so we can do pretty much anything we want with them. We got ray tracing, we can develop LiDARs, we can develop radars, we can develop any type of sensor. You can calibrate with it. We also offer ADAMS, which is the longest standing multi-body simulation software in the world. Very well known in the automotive industry, pretty much all over the world, also in any other sector. These days we are developing also ADAMS real time, which is instead of running in a driving simulator with a reduced order model, you can use a ADAMS real time model, which is a multi-body simulation vehicle. It's fully certified with VI grade hardware and software, so you can use it pretty much as a plug and play. Also, from the point of view of Hexagon, we offer different metrology equipment, because that's mainly what they do. And we have Leica Geosystems that will record all the environment around you, then digest it as a LiDAR output, and then eventually you can convert that to VTD to have your 3D scenarios. VTD, which is owned by VRES, is also the people who develop open scenarios and open drive, so we know them inside out. If you want even further, you can also get GNSS data location with Novatel, and you can also get your vehicles made with autonomous stuff, which even though they mainly work in the States, they can work all around the world. And the intention is that we merge all these together, and we go from the recording of your outside world to eventually create an environment that works in the autonomous driving, and you can choose the level of fidelity of your vehicles. You can go from a bicycle model, you can go to a 5-mass model, or you can go to the full MBS model through an FMU. So it's completely up to you. How long? 10 seconds. Done. All for you.
Cheers. Good afternoon, everybody. My name is Paul Bates. I'm Director of Modelling and Appraisal at Connected Places Catapult. Catapult is part of the Innovate UK family. We're an RTO. We're here to help scale and commercialise CAV and CAM technologies, among other areas that we work on. CPC, Connected Places, we've been involved in CAV and CAM right back to the days of Lutz Pathfinder many years ago. I think we were talking about how long we were working in this space. And there's many projects we've been working on, both in terms of collaborative R&D, including things like Human Drive, ServCity, 5G Cal, but we've also been supporting the regulatory side as well, such as, we highlighted the CAVPass work. Well, we've done projects like CertiCAV and Safe MRX, which have fed into that process. So we've got deep technical expertise across the CAV-CAM space, and what we offer into the projects is to provide that help and support to help make your project successful, either providing our deep technical expertise to follow on discrete work packages or work in collaboration with you to help make your project successful. So again, we've got deep technical expertise, we can provide technical assurance, independent validation and verification, plus we can provide project management, marketing, dissemination, commercialization support, modelling and analytical skills. So our key offer, and if anyone wants to talk to us today, myself and my colleague Richard Holland are here from the Catapult, we can help with trials planning, development of trials, support during the undertaking of trials. We can help developing safety cases and providing independent validation, independent technical assurance from an engineering point of view, looking at supporting development of modelling, virtual trials and support in that area, as well as business support. And again, there's lots of work we've done in that area, particularly from the market forecast report we did for CCAV a couple of years ago, to business support, helping people understand their routes to market, the market size, market scales, and helping with scale-up planning, project management and dissemination as well. So here, we're a not-for-profit, we're here to help the industry and help commercialise and scale up. So if you think that we could help, there's a gap in your project, or you'd like to work with us, think that we can help you in some way,
please speak to myself and Richard. We'd be happy to speak to you later on. Thank you.
De-risk. Right. 2 slides. Still 2 minutes.
Thank you. I was going to run that last bit, but I'd be out of breath. So my name is Rev Babra, and I'm COO of De-risk, only recently COO. De-risk were formed in 2018, and what we do is we focus on making AVs commercially viable. What I mean by that is that they must be able to handle anything the real world throws at them. The first complication, I'm sure you'll all understand, is if they don't work in the rain and the horrible weather we had this morning, they're just not going to succeed. So what De-risk do is we collect edge cases. These are the weird and wonderful things that happen on the world's roads, and we recreate those in simulation. We're able to work with AV manufacturers in simulation and provide those edge cases to make sure that the AV stack on your system can pass those tests. And the theory is that if you can pass the weirdest stuff that happens on the road, you can probably drive in a straight line in perfect weather conditions. So that's the solution. The way we do it is that we collect these edge cases from all manner of places. We've got over 5 million hours of CCTV, and we're still collecting today. To give you an idea of just the data that we have from London alone, we've got 997 cameras in London alone looking at accident hotspots, dangerous junctions, etc. We have a commercial relationship with the world's largest reinsurer. So every time anybody has an accident where they make an insurance claim, those redacted insurance reports come to us, and we're able to recreate those accidents. Some weird stuff we see on those, things like ducks in the road, people trying to avoid those, foxes fighting, drunks sleeping, even plastic portaloos falling off the back of lorries into people's way. No pictures of that. It's not very nice to see. And then I think with last year's NVIDIA's GTC conference, we proved a 6 times improvement when you train with De-risk's edge cases. And we can also help not only with full autonomy, but the ADAS steps towards full autonomy. And last but not least, third-party validation. So we'd be interested in anybody here today that might need help with third-party validation. Thank you.
Hello everyone, I'm Damien Horton, founder and managing director of Eloy. We are a connected and autonomous vehicle software business with a focus on what's called multi-vehicle coordination. This is how you orchestrate the movement of more than one vehicle across the road, and there are loads of different applications where you think about car parks and ports, and also untangling traffic jams. What I've got here is actually a rural road example where the road's not wide enough for 2 cars to get past each other. One's coming from one direction, one's coming from the other. The coordination happens where one vehicle has to stop, the other vehicle proceeds through, and once that vehicle has proceeded through, the first vehicle can continue. So the vehicle on the left gets to proceed, the vehicle on the right gets to stop, and then that lorry comes through. This is trials we've done on the roads earlier this year. We're part of the Zenzic CAM scale-up for 2022, so we're doing this with 20 vehicles at UTAC Millbrook and Hariba Mira in the next few months. And we're particularly after people with fleets, big vehicles as well, so think of buses, trucks, tractors, and find it applicable to really scale up the experiments from our 20 vehicles up to hundreds of vehicles next year. Thank you very much.
Imperium, yeah. There you go.
Hi everyone, my name is Kusha Kave, CEO and co-founder at Imperium Drive. We develop teleoperation technology for autonomous vehicles. So all sorts of technologies that requires a human to take over the control or just supervise and monitor any autonomous vehicle, we can provide. Our solution is already working on multiple platforms. We focus specifically on remotely monitoring and operating on-road vehicles. We've spent a lot of time optimizing our solution for public wireless networks and mobile carriers, and we will be happy to work with any of you in this supply chain competition and various areas that I've listed here. So one is working towards making our technology more into a product that can be plug and play for any autonomous vehicle, to start running within a day. Happy to do that. Anything around functional safety and cybersecurity validation and verification. So, anyone is looking to develop tools for validation of teleoperation, we'll be happy to work with them. Also, minimum risk maneuver for teleoperation specifically due to loss of connectivity and all the inherent unreliabilities that we have with public networks. And finally, anything around connectivity management for teleoperation solutions we'll be happy to help with. Thank you very much.
Hi, I'm Amir Soltani, founder and managing director of CAN Engineering. We are a high-tech startup mainly focusing on advanced simulation solutions for smart mobility applications, including automotive, ADAS, and autonomous vehicles. We're the technical lead and the system integrator of Zenzic Phase 2 and 3 interoperable simulation project. And just last week, we won the IET Innovation Award for the most innovative solution in future mobility. Thanks to CCAV and Zenzic for their support and the whole CAM testbed for their collaboration in this project, including UTAC Millbrook, IDIADA, Myra, SMLL, University of Leeds, WMG, and also Ford UK, and Street Drone, and some other companies, including AWS and others, to support this very, very first interoperable simulation project. So as a result of this project, we are now working on a software platform as a kind of tools agnostic simulation integration platform that connect different simulation tools, including offline simulation for meal, seal, hill, wheel, even to real-time data from the test track, from intelligent transport system, V2X, to form a kind of unified integrated end-to-end development platform. And hopefully through this next new project, we will work on the improvement of this platform to become a kind of end-to-end V&V platform for the validation and also verification and certification of autonomous vehicles. Thank you.
Level 5. Where are we? There.
Hi, my name's John Rivers. I'm lead engineer at Level 5 Supplies. So who are Level 5 Supplies? So primarily we're a distributor for all the manufacturers you see on the screen, plus some others, focusing on LiDAR, camera, radar. We also supply driver-wire systems as well. So today's pitch is really around the driver-wire systems. So we're looking for a Tier 1 or OEM manufacturer to work with to assist with the development of the drive-by-wire system from one of our partners. So that would be increasing the functionality of that system and increasing the amount of vehicles that system works with. Okay, that's me, myself.
Hi everyone, my name is Sam Glasman. I'm the founder of Megasets. We are a synthetic training data company, but we spun out of 5 2 years ago, just 2.5 years ago. And since then we've been building up on our platform. We're supplying products for our specialties of creating digital worlds for synthetic training data. We also have a simulation offering, and we have annotation and metadata on top of that. So we're really looking forward to collaborating with anyone in the room who is looking for scalable synthetic training data. We're cloud-based. We've just won a Fast Start grant with Innovate UK, so thank you, Innovate. You might have seen our pitch at the CAM Scale-Up. We didn't make the final cohort, but we were in the final 14. And we're at the moment working with AWS in their startup Loft Accelerator. So we're building up and scaling up our platform and we're about to go into alpha. We are looking to do and work with any projects that are looking for digital twins. We can use our procedural generation tools to create procedural scenarios and twins. So anybody who's looking for that capability, please get in touch. Thank you.
So I'm David Rajan, I'm CEO at Opteran. We've re-engineered an insect brain. Sounds a lot crazy, but it's true. We understand the structure and function of how insects' brains work, how they see, how they sense, how they navigate, how they make decisions, how they avoid collisions. And it's so efficient, like an insect brain, tiny and energy efficient, that it can run on the lowest silicon. What you're seeing here, really, and this is what we're interested in, is augmenting sensor technology in the first instance in this room with people here looking to collaborate. What you're looking at there is a $10 2D CMOS camera running on a car at midday in bright sunlight, and again in dusk at 8:30 p.m. in the evening. The output's identical, using a $10 camera on with about 2 to 3 watts of energy. And that's pretty unique. We can also do localization at the same time. I'm not here to talk about collision avoidance or navigation, but if you want to talk about that, we'd be very happy to. Our navigation is only 1 kilobyte per meter squared. No point clouds, no data sets, no training, none of that stuff. We re-engineer algorithms direct from a brain onto a silicon chip. Low cost and incredibly powerful. Key thing, another takeaway there, data point, that's operating at 90 frames per second. We do 150 frames a second on the Sony IMX cameras, and we've benchmarked to 10,000 frames per second. The system's idle. It can process that fast. So we do natural intelligence, re-engineering, the only true example of working autonomy we have, which is nature. Thank you very much.
Right.
Hi, my name's Roland Struby from Transport Brokerage Limited. We developed out of Mobility as a Service project, Mass for EU, and we're looking at things from a decentralized perspective. And of course, transport at the moment is decentralized to all the 32 million car owners in the UK on its own. So we want to ensure that new transport services are financially viable by enabling everyone, especially those car owners, to participate in a decentralized marketplace. By representing new services as non-fungible tokens, NFTs, in a blockchain, the money saved by owning fewer cars can be used to develop the services that make it possible to own fewer cars. So at the moment, providing new transport services to a population should make it possible to have fewer cars and reduce overall costs. But of course, you can't use something until it's provided. This means there's a transition period during which the new service and the existing number of cars both exist at the same time. This increases costs, and the transport providers currently bear the risk of that. They're not very well placed to do so because they don't know who's going where and when. They don't have any direct communication links with potential users, but most importantly, they don't benefit from owning fewer cars. So the idea is, the solution is to shift that financial responsibility from providers, distribute it to users who do have the benefit of owning fewer cars as a result, and to shift the transition online so that when changes happen on the ground, they are financially viable. NFTs can be controlled by smart contracts that can make one NFT developed dependent on the development of another NFT. Something like a commuter shuttle changes the demand for the shared car, for example, so you need the two to develop independently online before they get delivered on the ground. Interested in working with anybody who wants to work with us?
Good afternoon, everybody. Good afternoon, customers. Nice to see so many of you here today. So we are the UTAC Culham testbed. We're part of the original stream. We operate the controlled urban environment, but also we're co-located with the DCMS-sponsored 5G testbed for transport. So we run a whole lot of 5G use cases as well as autonomous vehicles. We have a lot of different test facilities between the two locations. So we're one test bed in two places, at Millbrook in Bedfordshire and at the Culham Science Park in Oxfordshire. So we offer this customer transition from early stage, be on your own, no obstacles, no people, no children, no footballs, to fail in private. And it's really important that you do not fail in public. Moving on then, when you gain confidence, moving into Culham, which is a semi-controlled environment, we have all kinds of urban infrastructure there. We have 2,500 people on the site and more access to humans, except the elderly and the children. But even so, we offer this customer journey out onto the public test beds, which again are part of CAM Testbed UK. We have a whole suite of digital models that can also replicate both sites as well in extraordinary detail and run all kinds of weather scenarios and so on. What's innovative? Well, we're open to everybody. We don't really mind. We'll talk to anybody, whether you're a startup, an SME, an OEM, or a global consortium of multinationals. That would be nice. The key thing is we're independent, we're impartial. We do test services. We don't generate our own IP. We're not interested in your IP as a business. It's interesting, of course, but as a business, we're not interested. So you can bring it to us. We'll look after it. We'll keep it confidential, make sure it doesn't leak out, and then you take it away again. That's the sort of general offer we run. It can be development, it can be trials, it can be tests, it can be demonstrations. There's a whole range of different facilities that we have. Obviously, take a look at the website, look at the Zenzic website under CAM Testbed for some of the work we've done previously. And yes, thanks to Amir, we were part of the award as well. We did also win an engineering collaboration award in 2020 for the 5G testbed, so come and find me.
Right, the next one, Thomas couldn't be here.
Hello, I'm Thomas Morgan and I work for Warwick Manufacturing Group. I operate as a supply chain architect to support the build of resilient UK manufacturing. We are looking to work with any project to support your industrialisation. By establishing a viable route to market strategy, we can design, recruit, and build an aligned and optimised supply base. Working with UK and non-UK suppliers, with cost and operation efficiency through maximising localised sovereign production. Our approach supports the early recruitment, which means they can align their business development and investment strategies to the project. Doing this across the supply chain and with the supply chain alliance communication significantly reduces the industrialisation risks. I look forward to reviewing with you how we can help in the context of your project. Thank you.
Let's give him a clap.
Afternoon. For those who don't know me, I'm John McNichol of Nova Modus. Me and a few of my colleagues, part-time colleagues, we've contributed to 10 of the CCAV funded R&D projects, including authoring, how many bids? Yeah, 8 bids, and therefore securing something like nearly £15 million worth of CCAV's money. And we're currently, or have recently managed 5 of the CCAV projects. Currently talking to a number of people around V&V, particularly real-time monitoring of vehicles, particularly using AI as a adversarial agent or agents for that purpose.
and also talking to a number of folk around minimum risk manoeuvres, trying to formalise them in some way, shape or form, and also talking to a few folk around remote operation. We did a piece of work for the BSI around remote operation. So in summary, these are some projects and some people that we've worked with. I can help you make your bid win. And when you've won it, I can help you deliver it successfully to budget and on time.
Okay, Helix.
Hi, I'm Oliver Leaston. I'm the CTO and currently interim CEO of Helix Geospace. And what we do is we make little antennas like this. We did actually validate our technology using a CAM scale-up, Zenzic CAM scale-up program. And actually one of the things we found was that the incumbent technology, the patch antenna, didn't give very good accuracy on vehicles. And we've subsequently realized that that is because it's part of the vehicle. You're effectively connecting the vehicle to the GNSS, and the range ambiguity is therefore as big as the vehicle. A little antenna like this has, in effect, what people refer to as a choke ring installed within it, and that basically isolates the antenna from the vehicle, and the antenna can give your 10 centimeter box accuracy very easily. So that's our main mission. Our vision, though, is to make a system which actually detects the direction of arrival of GNSS signals and basically looks for contradictions to the actual azimuth direction that the signal should be coming from. And if there is a contradiction, in validating the use of that signal, we foresee that this is possible very rapidly, so that it's possible to make 100 fixes a second in a viable instrument, and therefore it's much easier to do than a sensor fusion system that's dependent on fields. So that's our vision, and if anyone wants to work with us, we would very much welcome meeting you and discussing collaboration.
Stability.
Hi everyone, I'm Rob Rugman from Mobility Operations. As a company, we exist to deliver smart and sustainable solutions to improve the mobility of our customers. We have 650,000 disabled customers in the UK. For the vast majority of those, 630,000, we offer a 3-year lease in a vehicle. So we have currently 630,000 cars on the road in the UK. And we are looking for anyone who may be able to help us deliver on that purpose through this process. We run a number of pilots. We have a kind of innovation function within the company. We are happy to talk to anybody who may have something to offer the disabled community in the UK. Thank you.
We are flying today. Right. Oxford RF. Yes.
Hi everyone, I'm Kashif, CEO of Oxford RF. We are doing the world's first solid-state 360-degree radar system. It's for ADAS and autonomy. So usually when you think about a 360 system, it has some moving parts in it, like a spinning antenna, spinning optics. And then if you think about radars, they have a limited field of view. So this system is solid-state in that it doesn't have any moving parts in it, but also it can look in the full 360 degrees. And we are looking to use this for ADAS and autonomy applications as well as robotics applications, and we're looking to participate in consortia. So we need help in all sorts of radar modeling, installing this in a vehicle, and even some V2X operations. So really happy to participate, and if this is of interest, please come and find me. Thank you.
Hello everyone, I'm Daniela Gonzalez. Really nice to see a lot of familiar faces here. We installed our company in Media Technology Park in 2015. In 2018, we present our autonomous platform in the advanced engineering. From there, we improve our components, the driverware system, the computer, and we are working with more than 20 AI development in the last 3 years. Okay, thank you. In the last 3 years, we helped 20 AI development projects with our Lita computer, and we are looking to participate and collaborate with different providers that want to improve or work with this system. If you are interested, talk to me. Thank you.
Radar, where are we? Oh, there you go.
Hi, my name's Clem Robertson, and I'm the CEO and founder of Radar Technologies. What we're doing is making any autonomous radar, any automotive radar, be able to have extra information to tell you about what it is, where it is, and what it is doing. Not by interpretation, but by unambiguous information sent from the target or the asset back to the radar. We recently tested this as part of the second cohort of CAM Scale-Up, and we're currently looking to build a wider system where we integrate with a larger system, whether that be another radar manufacturer using their radar reading our beacons, or working with a bigger system to create a systems-to-systems approach to show how our technology can augment other technologies like V2X, cameras, LiDARs. What we do is we provide ability to be able to continue to operate in sun, rain, snow, fog, dust, the kind of scenarios where a camera will fail, but we're also able to give you accurate positional information in those conditions because our beacon is a shining beacon. It can be seen. Okay.
Okay.
Is it 3 o'clock it's finishing, is it? So I've got about 4. So I'm Gunny Dariala, Director of ASIN. If you don't know, ASIN is the Automotive Electronic Systems Innovation Network. So we're the leading industry association championing the automotive electronics industry. Just a show of hands, how many ASIN members are actually in the room? That's good. Good to see a few. It's good to see a few of them. For the rest of you, shame on you. You should be members also. We can correct that. You just come and see me and we'll sort that out for you. So ASIN represents about 75 members driving the technology agenda in the UK. We're really keen to make sure that we don't forget about the technology in the midst of developing autonomous vehicles. We have a number of special interest groups, of which one is around perception sensors. We don't just cover CAV, we have a number of technology interests. But the perception sensors is a particularly interesting and important one because we see a particular opportunity for the UK to grow in this space. And so a number of our members are active in this space. We actually held our very first Perception Sensors conference this summer, and we had about 70 participants. So our members have come to us and said we have a number of interests, and some of them have already presented. And these are the areas where they've suggested some interest. So if there's collaboration opportunities, we're keen to build technology collaborators together. First one's photonics. So photonics actually, if you didn't know, is actually a very hot topic and a huge UK success story outside of the automotive industry and the autonomous industry, but we have some fantastic research capability, and we're keen to see how we can bring that into the next generation of sensor tech in the UK. So we're looking to see how we can migrate from academia into industrial applications and looking for partners in that space. Modelling and simulation has already been mentioned, so we have a small group already talking about putting a consortium together. Some have presented today also, and again, so come and see me and or some of the people presented in that space to see how we can build a consortium there. Third one is again around radar sensors. So we've had radar sensor manufacturers and developers present today. We want to build on that. We want to bring more people into that game, and particularly on number 4, which is looking to see how we can develop design, manufacturing, supply chain, supply capability based in the UK. That means that we don't just give it away, but we really see how we can build that capability in the UK, and that's really important for us to start to drive that in what we do here. So my whole mission is to see how we can bring a lot of this technology development into the UK and champion that through ASIM. And this is a great vehicle for us to try and do that through the supply chain competition. Perfect. Thank you.
Okay, so you've seen some really interesting pictures here. You should now have a bit of a feel as to people that you want to go and speak to at the coffee break, which will be about 15 minutes. But you might be feeling, I should have put my pitch deck in. So here is your chance for the next 15 minutes. If anybody wants to come up on stage and ad-lib, more than welcome to come in. And any raise of hands, any volunteers? There you go. Right. So I'll blank out. There you go.
Blank screen.
Blank screen.
Just like my life. Richard Barrington from Angoka. We're known to a number of you as a cybersecurity specialist in this space. We're particularly looking for people who are looking at multiple data flows from a single vehicle. So the challenge is, of course, the manufacturer is locking down most of the data that's leaving that vehicle because for very good reasons, but they may want to actually share some of that data, for example, health and usage monitoring of the battery pack with the supplier of the battery. We can enable that securely, creating multiple peer-to-peer secure networks on a single machine. And if that machine becomes compromised, it then is kicked out of the circle of trust that has been created. So really looking for people who are looking at that as a solution. We're also probably one of the few, if the only, British company that is deemed to be quantum safe by Queen's and Edinburgh universities. That means because everything we're doing today is all about the next 10 years, we can guarantee that our technology is safe and certified against quantum attack for that period of time. So that's a real value in engaging with us, and I look forward to talking with you over coffee. Thank you.
Sorry, one over there, then you can go next.
Hello. Yep. Good afternoon. My name is Christian Ruffert. I'm the founder of Terragens. We heard this morning how the connectivity part in connected and autonomous vehicles is the ugly duckling in this entire story, and we are here to make that ugly duckling slightly more beautiful. We have very detailed benchmarks on the quality of mobile connectivity available along all the roads and every other location in the UK. We have collected that using crowdsourced data and some advanced geospatial analytics, which means that to the resolution of a few meters, we can tell you the signal strength that you can expect from every mobile operator on every piece of road in the UK. And we think that's valuable. So we want to make that data available to everybody that has an interest in this space. Equally, we want to work with people that operate connected vehicles to collect more data about the available connectivity and upgrade our data, and in that way start a virtuous circle. So if you're interested, come and find me. Thank you.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. I'm Kate Chandler. I represent Synthesis. We're a systems architecture and systems engineering company across 3 areas: technologies, research, and defence. We are framework architecture specialists, V2V integrators, assurance, standards, and validation. IBM Gold Partners and working on multinational, multi-level projects. If you're interested in finding out more, come and chat to me during coffee.
Yeah, afternoon everybody. Bob Banks from Vodafone. Just like to remind those people that were at the Ebba Vale event earlier this year and those people that are here at this event for the first time, that Vodafone has a production ready and has launched in the UK and Germany an ITS messaging broker platform, so we can take in ITS messages according to the ETSI standard, the V2X messages, and we can make those available up into third parties, road operators, etc., or service providers. We could also take messages that flow down from those parties to anybody on the road. So we're not just talking about vehicles, we're talking about every road user type, because ultimately we can deliver this through the cellular network and through handsets. We've developed an SDK which introduces the V2X capability into both Android and Apple iOS handsets, and we've done engineering applications that build on those, but we're also interested in enticing application developers to also take on board the SDK and start to introduce V2X messages into their application. So again, please come and find me if you want to know more. Thank you very much.
Hello guys, thank you very much and for the great presentations up to now. My name is Odysseas Kosmas, I'm from Conidigital, which stands for Connecting Digital. We're a company, a deep tech company, AI, driverless vehicle company developing our full stack, lift and shift, as we like to call it, driverless platform for any type of vehicles. We are for more than 6 years in the company. We've got a fleet of different type of cars up to now. We're interested on several areas. I would stick to the ones that I'm really interested on, anything that has to do with data, cybersecurity, electronics, and of course anything that can help towards the goal that we have as a company, which is the mobility for all and the connecting everybody digital. So thank you very much. We're here a full group of people and would love to communicate with all of you. Thank you.
Okay, one more. Anybody else? Anybody else? No?
Hi, good afternoon. I am Amin Jadi and I'm representing Semantic Chasm today. So the reason for that name is I remember my PhD supervisor and I were talking about these interactions between humans and robots, and the aim of us actually building these machines to help us has got to be at some point converging towards breaking that semantic chasm that exists between people and robots. So chances are, if you have built driverless cars, you've built models first, and you just try to explain what you've learned. You try to explain where it actually has gone wrong. So we kind of flipped that problem back on its back, and we decided to go explainability first. Because without explainability, you don't know what data you've got. You don't know the substance of the information that you have, and you can't get the right models anyway. So if you want to adopt a completely different approach to actually know exactly what machines you're going to put out there before you put them out there on the test beds, please come talk to us. Thank you.
Hello, my name is Patrick. I work for Calio. We are an ultrasonic sensing company. Our sensor can provide 3D mapping of environments in real time. To CCAV applications, we can offer reliability, redundancy, and robustness in adverse weather conditions. That's because our sensor can see through fog, smoke, rain, and snow. Our sensor is also very low size, weight, and power. We're interested in working with anyone who can help us develop and test our sensor. If that's of interest to you, come and find me. Thank you.
So we're now at coffee break time. You should have now a few more faces that you want to go and speak to. So take this opportunity, go there. I will say, those who haven't submitted a pitch deck, if you want it attached, appended at the end of the deck that we will share later on, feel free to share them with me, and I will promise I will add them before it gets sort of published out as a summary of today. Yep. Coffee should be there, I hope. Hi there. Right then, so thank you, and yeah, just wanted to introduce you guys to Innovate UK Edge. I think it's a relatively new part of the Innovate UK family, and I think it's something that's highly relevant to you guys who are now thinking about commercializing and moving out into commercial propositions. So further ado, over to Ben.
Cheers, Tony. Thank you. Well done for surviving to the last session of the day and being here to hear me go on for a little while. I'll try and keep it short and impactful and exciting. And we'll see how far we get before everyone falls asleep. But just to start off, Innovate UK Edge. We are not Innovate UK, we are Innovate UK Edge. There is a difference. You all know one. And if you don't know about, I'm not going to ask you to raise your hands, but I've seen a few businesses here today pitching just now who are clients of ours, who I know some of them personally, and I thought some of the pitches were very good actually, so our training's obviously working. But just so if you don't know where we sit, you've probably seen this before. This is the UKRI sort of family tree. Got Innovate UK there at the bottom. We are funded by Innovate UK to deliver innovation and growth support to innovative businesses. So this is just a really quick, if you don't know it, this is from the Plan for Action from Innovate UK. 5 of the key themes, strategic themes. I'm not going to go through them all, but the orange one on the far side there, growth at scale, that's where Innovate UK Edge sits. It's about supporting businesses to grow, scale, commercialise the innovations that is funded by Innovate UK and to build up the ecosystems around them to support that growth and scale up. So if I look inside that box, the growth at scale box, you'll see 4 things. Innovate UK Edge here on the right hand side. However, we do work across the other 3. It's all, and this is the sort of 3 pillars or the 3 legs on our stool. Global market access, which is, I'll come on to in a bit more detail in a minute, some of the aspects of that, but it's about partnering, finding partners, not just in the UK, but abroad, the best partners. Could be supply chain, could be customers, could be research and development collaboration. Prepare for growth, that's internal capability within a business to make the most out of an innovation, to build a company, to exploit that innovation, make the most of it. And the final one is about money, and everyone needs money. Money is the answer to every question. So if I move quickly on, sorry if you don't like purple, everything's going to be purple from now on, it's branding. However, Innovate UK Edge, some fairly old statistics on the right hand side here, talking about £350 million of funding and finance raised. I think that's actually a lot out of date because I know in our region we've raised over 100 million. So, but it just talks on the left hand side there about those 3 pillars and what we're doing. So what is, if I just go back to the start, what is Innovate UK Edge? Innovate UK Edge is a business support, fully funded by Innovate UK, business support for an innovative business. Anyone less than 500 who's an innovative business and wants the support can access it. The innovation is usually has to be technology led, so if you're an innovator in ice cream flavours, we're probably not that interested in you. I'm personally very interested, but as Innovate UK Edge, we're not going to probably touch you. If it's a technology-led innovation, as pretty much everyone in this room, I would imagine is, then you can access Innovate UK Edge support as long as you haven't got a greater than 500 employee business. And it's a bespoke support. So this isn't out of the box. This is up to 15 days of time with experts. No cost to you. Just let that sink in. This is filling a market gap for those businesses who might not be able to afford it, or they don't know where to go, or they have a problem and they can't find a solution. We're here to support them and find answers to their problems, to jump those hurdles and to get that business growing and scaling. So we focus on those 3 areas: exploit innovation, source the right funding and finance, and enter new markets. So my role within this is I'm the funding and finance manager for the Southwest. Innovate UK Edge is delivered regionally by different partners. It's a national programme though, including very soon now Scotland. So I manage the funding and finance aspect of that. I've got a team. I'll show you a picture of their lovely faces in a minute. But we're going to just quickly go through now what each of those 3 boxes sort of entails and why you might be interested in it. Starting off, a bit of a case study. This is a business called Arc Marine. You might or might not have heard of them, but they're a fantastic startup protecting offshore infrastructure, cables, but they do it with these concrete blocks that form reefs. And it's building biodiversity in the oceans. As part of the Innovate UK Edge support, there was only a couple of them in the business when we started working with them. They've, as the quote says, there's now a team of 7. I think they've grown further. With our support, they've got innovation funding. They've worked on their IP internationally and nationally. They've got partners in France, China, and elsewhere. And they're working with a number of family members like the Catapults. And we're not taking all the credit for this, but we've certainly helped. So where do we operate? You probably all know the TRL scale. Towards the end of that, sort of 4, 5 and upwards is where we want to be working. We're looking at late seed, early stage investment growth and up to scale businesses. Not really the very early stage ones, so a little bit of establishment there, but if you're an early stage business, come talk to us. We can probably find some help for you if it's not us. So looking at those first of those 3 boxes, we talk about exploiting the innovation. There's a few on this slide. I don't imagine you're going to want to read it all. These slides are available afterwards, but what I'll say is we do a very in-depth assessment of the needs and challenges of that business before we start working with them. And it might be around strategy, it might be around marketing, market readiness, information, collaboration, even things like net zero, HR and lean processes. We support innovators to address their most pressing needs. And we do pretty much everything you can think of that isn't going to provide us with a legal liability if it goes wrong. So we will provide not advice, but might suggest, as it were, to avoid that stumbling block. But marketing, digital marketing, everything from that all the way to very technical work with the sector-specific people like the guys you've seen today. So you might, the Catapults, CCAV, academic bodies, we work with all of those. And if we think you're right, we will push you into those. We'll start that conversation. It might be stuff that you're not already aware of. Everyone in here probably knows the same sort of CCAV partners, the Connected Places Catapult, all those. But there may be some other areas your technology can work in. There's application areas that are not in your vertical. Horizontally, you might want to expand your business. And that's something we look at, and that's something we support a business to do, making the most of their innovations. So we have some tools to support that. BSI Online, British Standards, very important. I heard a lot about regulatory stuff today. Grants to work with the Catapult networks. And I don't know if they're still here, but the CPC, there we go, right in the front row. You probably hate the Catapult grants, but we did everything they were talking about they can do before. There is £15,000 to support you working with them to do that. I'm not going to talk on their behalf because I think we've probably spent this year's allocation a little bit already. However, working with people like the CPC, working with other RTOs, that is available. There's a £15,000 100% funding grant available to help you do that. Any of their aspects that they do are coverable. Also IP. IP is a huge area. Imagine everyone in here has got some IP. Technology-led businesses always do. It's super important to get it right. If you get it wrong, your business will more than likely come a cropper at some point, even not when you're in the UK, but it might come a cropper when you go abroad, when you start to internationalize. So getting that right up front is a big part of what we do. And we work with the IPO, Intellectual Property Office, to support and provide grants to businesses. Here we go. I knew there was a slide. This is slightly out of date. It says £3,000 worth of work, but it's actually now 4,000. There is a cost of £500 to the business, but you can have an IP audit through us to work with your IP specialist, your lawyer, whoever, to make sure your IP isn't in danger, or make sure you're not contravening other IP. You might be looking to move to a different market. This can support you assessing that viability. And then we also have a follow-on grant called the IP Access Grant. When you get your IP audit, it might say you need to do this, that, and the other. You need to file your IP. That's what this is there for. And that's £5,000 to file IP. Everyone in here, I imagine, could do with that. So it's available through Innovate UK Edge. I won't go into all the different details. It's all on there. This is another success story, a business from Bristol. I know them really well because my name's up on the top right corner. So they were a business that had an IP challenge. We worked with them, IP audit, we got around that. They got grant funding. They created a product in a different area. They're a computer vision company who were working on coins and with the Mint. They ended up creating a fever screening device. And they saw that opportunity, they went and they did it, and they're now making sales around the world for that. So going on to the money aspect. So this is the second of those boxes. This is my box. This is the one I'm in control of in the Southwest. And I put some numbers up here which just falling off the edge of the screen. But in the Southwest over the last 2 years, 640 SMEs. SMEs is a naughty word, I shouldn't have put that in there. High growth businesses. But we're providing one-to-one support with them up to sort of 40 hours in some instances. And they've raised, those numbers are actually wrong as well on the bottom there. So equity and grant funding we've supported them to raise is now 106 million. So, we're working one-to-one with businesses, and we're not writing bids for people. We're not doing anything we shouldn't. We are inside the Innovate UK family, but we aren't connected to the project teams, for instance. We don't. But what we can do is we can work with businesses to identify if a funding opportunity is right for them. A lot of people might see SMART. Everyone here is probably more than familiar with Innovate, but a lot of businesses come and say, I've seen SMART, I want to go for that. SMART grants, they're great. And the first answer and the last answer with SMART is, not if you don't have to, it's really difficult, please don't. We have success supporting businesses go for that, but there's usually a better opportunity somewhere else, whether that's Innovate, whether it's Horizon Europe, whether it's Eureka, whether it's local authority funding. We're just trying to assess a business's needs in the best way we can and give them the best support to then get funding if we find something that we think they can go for. And that isn't just grant funding. We do a lot of work around investment readiness. That's the next big thing, really, is getting businesses ready to get the investment they need, equity and otherwise, to grow their business. There is more than just grants. So this is just a really quick look at my team and a really quick look at the kind of stuff we work with them on. Financial health checks, cash flow forecasts, helping people assess these different options, if they need a forecast, helping them form their own, helping them find what they need to do to create these things. We're doing a pitch event today in Bristol, which I was going to be at until this time yesterday when I got pulled in to do this, which is about bringing people, helping them practice their pitching in front of investors, even if the investors aren't there to invest, they're there to provide the feedback, get people ready to actually pitch in the real time, real world, and making them understand what's important to investors as well. So that's just a few things on there that we typically do with businesses, and there's my team. I'm not going to go through what open call funding's out there that might be of interest to you guys. I had a look quickly yesterday, and there's transport funding, there's PEMD stuff and zero emission propulsion. There might be some cross-cutting technologies that are interesting there. I just thought I'd put that out rather than going into more detail and scrolling through. Another success story, drone company called Celestial Labs. They're a fantastic business. They do these drone displays in the sky. They've done lots of really big displays, a lot of them on TV. And we help them raise quite a lot of finance. We help them get their pitch deck right, their investment pack. We worked with them to get that funding, and they've been successful once more actually since the funding that's on the screen. So just another success story in the different type of businesses we work with. And that finally, like the entering new markets, the third box. So I'm going to go into a little bit more detail about GBIPs in a minute, which are Global Business Innovation Program. But we do a lot of other work to support businesses to scale out of the UK, find those opportunities where they are, assess them, and go for them if they're a good possibility for their technology or their business. I mean, as it says at the bottom there, 99% of the global population isn't in the UK and 97% of the wealth isn't here. You don't want to leave that begging if there's an opportunity for you to grow your business by accessing that. And we work with a lot of different partners. There's bilateral funding for some of the ones on the screen there and other ones, and it's more and more is coming out. It's just something to be aware of, and we're all over that, and I'll go into a little bit more detail in a second. Another case study, Hydroserve, they're a fantastic business. They do surveying in the marine environment. They've, with our support and with going on GBIPs, they've now got partners and a foothold in Canada and in China, I believe, and in the Scandinavian countries. And that's all part of being involved with Innovate UK Edge and the international support that we offer. So, GBIPs, global business. I think this is quite important for this audience today, and I'll explain a little bit more on the next slide. But what a GBIP is it's funded by Innovate UK, delivered by Innovate UK Edge, and it's not a trade mission. It's not a trade mission to a different country. It's a innovation exchange. It's going and talking to Hyundai or one of the big Korean Air and other big businesses like that in specific technology sectors. Often there's bilateral funding arranged around that, and it's about collaborative technology transfer, R&D, building those partnerships, identifying the right ones, and getting your name out there as a small, medium or large company in the UK. So, in the GBIPs, Global Business Innovation Programme, there's a video going to come on in a minute, which is a really good one. But what I wanted to highlight firstly is there's a current, it will be opened in about 3 or 4 weeks, a GBIP to South Korea on connected autonomous vehicles. There is also one open in 2 weeks going to Canada on the same topic. And they're really, there's a lot of value in looking at this if you're in this sector. I won't, I think there's some details going to be in the slides when you get them at the end. We haven't got them ready right now. But if you look at the dates there, you look at the links there, you'll find who to contact and who to connect to apply. It's not hard to apply, and it's fully funded, 5 days out of country, going to different countries, seeing the biggest technology partners in those countries, businesses as well as researchers, RTO types, and getting you on the floor talking to those people, the decision makers. So the next slide is a video, and I hope this works. Can you hear that?
The Global Business Innovation Programme is a 3-phase programme funded by Innovate UK, the UK Government's innovation agency, and delivered by Innovate UK Edge. We provide bespoke support to innovation-led businesses looking to grow, scale and internationalise. The Global Business Innovation Programme helps the most promising companies developing cutting-edge technologies, find international collaboration partners and enter international markets of strategic importance. South Korea is a high-tech, fast-moving, dynamic market which benefits from world-class technologies. Home to leading electronics companies such as Samsung and LG and automotive manufacturers Hyundai. The population is highly educated and known for being early adopters of new technologies. Through the Global Business Innovation Programme, Innovate UK has supported over 100 companies to prepare for and visit this highly attractive market, allowing businesses to explore opportunities in various technology sectors to build and strengthen relationships and drive collaboration opportunities. Delegates build their capability by honing and developing skills and adapting to new business environments. Participating companies are immersed in the local ecosystem, gaining access to market information and intelligence, and are given exclusive access and introductions to key stakeholders and partners who would ordinarily be beyond their reach. A crucial part of the Global Business Innovation Programme is creating opportunities to network and connect with potential partners. B2B and roundtable meetings allow participants to explore opportunities for collaboration, and being part of a small group who are together for about a week facilitate peer-to-peer learning and UK partnerships. To successfully gain access to international markets, it's crucial to understand cultural differences and customs. Gaining this insight is an essential part of building long-term trusting relationships. The Global Business Innovation Programme is a journey. Delegates learn and are empowered by each other, grow in confidence and are given the potential to accelerate their growth and expand overseas. Welcome to the Global Business Innovation Programme from Innovate UK and Innovate UK Edge.
So that voice you can hear is Louise Hooker, who runs the GBIPs to South Korea, and she runs them from the southwest. And we've actually run 10 to South Korea in the last 4 years. 5 of those have been this year because of COVID backlogs. And there is bilateral funding to go alongside this. So there's South Korea, UK funding to support the technology areas that we're talking about today. So connected autonomous vehicles are a major part of the funding calls that are out and are going to come out. It's just something to be aware of. And if you can't see the value, there'll be more information online soon about these upcoming ones to Korea and to Canada. And the final thing I wanted to mention is about partnering again. This is a different thing, another different thing. So finding the right partners in different countries can be hard. The Enterprise Europe Network, if you've heard of this or not, it's been around a while. It's a bit of a misnomer because it's not just about Europe. There are 69 countries in the network, people on the ground, like me, in those countries, in different areas, in different technology areas, and in different regions, who can find partners for you. There's a number of bits in place to support this. It's the world's largest business support agency. I'm not going to cover that anymore, but this you can access online. I've searched at the bottom here, connected autonomous vehicles, and I've got 326 profiles around that. So I think there's probably something there for everyone, and you can get your profile on there as well. Technology offer, technology request, partnering offer, partner request. That's done and support and controlled through Innovate UK Edge. And that's my final slide for the day. Hope that wasn't too boring, but if you've got any questions, if you want to contact me, if you want to contact Innovate UK Edge, please do. I'm more than happy to answer any questions.
You mentioned size of company at 500 people. Is there a turnover or monetary size limit on the companies as well?
So the eligibility is changed recently because of the state aid rules changing, and now 500 people is the limit, sole limit. I think they've taken away the turnover revenue limits.
Okay, cool. Thank you. Interesting.
Okay, thank you. So, thank you very much. I think that concludes today's event. I hope you found it interesting and informative. And as I said, as everybody said here, we're here to help Innovate UK, KTN, Zenzic. So reach out, and we'll be able to help you build those consortia for the supply chain and beyond that. So nothing more to say, I think. If I might want to offer, do you guys have any more questions you want to raise to David or Mark? Now maybe it's your last gun salute, otherwise maybe meet them at the coffee area.
Not on deployment.
Not on deployment? No deployments? No, you're all good?
No,
all done? Yeah.
Well, I will, before you do run away, I will say thank you very much for coming. Thank you to Tony for organising. Somebody asked me earlier today, and somebody asked yesterday, why Bristol? Why not? And we do like to travel around the country. We have plans afoot for more of these, so if you would like to host us, if you're a university or you've got links to a local conference centre, drop us a shout and it makes it easier for Tony and I. But as before, thank you for coming. Hopefully you found it useful.